Hi guys, tonight we step away from roads, cities, clocks and electric light and enter a world where no walls mark the edge of safety. The sky is wide, the grass whispers in the dark, and a small fire breathes softly beside a shelter of branches and hide. Somewhere beyond the glow, an animal calls once, then falls silent. You feel cool earth beneath your feet, smoke in your hair, and the warmth of people sleeping close together. Tonight, you're going back to a time before farms, kingdoms, written laws, or permanent towns, when human life moved with seasons, animals, water, and memory. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you settle in, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what your local time is. It is comforting to imagine quiet rooms around the world sharing the same ancient night. Now dim the lights and let the last modern sound fade away. You stand near the edge of a camp that would hardly look like a settlement to modern eyes. There are no streets, no fences, and no sign announcing that human beings live here. A few low shelters curve beneath the trees. Animal hides hang from wooden poles. Stones blackened by fire form a rough circle at the centre. Around them lie flint flakes, cracked bones, bundles of grass, and simple tools. This is the world before civilization. Although the phrase can be misleading, they know their land in astonishing detail. They understand which plants can be eaten, which roots must be cooked, where animals drink, and how clouds change before rain. Their knowledge lives in practiced hands, remembered paths, and repeated stories. An accepted fact about prehistoric hunter-gatherers is that most people lived in small, mobile groups, often moving as food and water change with the seasons. Their journeys followed familiar routes. They returned to known springs, sheltered valleys, fruiting trees, fishing places, and stone sources where useful tool material could be found. You begin to notice how much quiet work holds the camp together. A woman crouches beside a hide, scraping it with a stone edge while speaking softly to a child. Nearby, two people sort roots into separate piles. One pile will be eaten, another must be soaked or roasted. A third is pushed aside because one mistake in plant identification can turn supper into a regrettable experiment. Prehistoric cuisine has no warning labels. It relies on memory, caution, and someone older saying, in effect, "Please do not chew that." A man examines the tip of a wooden spear. Another person twists plant fibers into cord. These objects look plain. Yet each represents skill. A spear must be straight enough to use accurately. Cord must resist strain. A hide covering must shed rain. A fire must be fed without wasting scarce fuel. This is your first lesson in danger. It does not always arrive roaring from the bushes. Often, it begins with a small failure. A tool breaks at the wrong moment. A child wanders beyond sight. Rain soaks the tinder, a waterhole dries early. Someone slips and twists an ankle. Civilization, much later, will create granaries, roads, markets, and institutions that spread risk across larger populations. Here, almost every need must be met by the band itself. Food, warmth, care, protection, and teaching are shared within a limited circle. If several skilled adults become ill, everyone feels the loss. If hunters return empty-handed, everyone eats less. If the person who knows the northern route dies, a map disappears from the world without leaving a mark. Researchers continue to question how large and stable prehistoric social networks were. Evidence suggests that some bands maintained distant contacts. Although these connections varied across place and time, what seems clear is that survival rarely depended on one isolated household. It depended on relationships extending beyond the immediate fire. Dusk settles over the camp. The light turns grey beneath the trees, smoke drifts low, carrying the smell of roasted roots and warm fat. Someone adds dry twigs to the flames, and sparks rise briefly like tiny stars trying to return to the sky. A lesser-known detail of prehistoric life is that people sometimes transported useful stone over long distances. Archaeologists have found tools made from materials that originated far from where those tools were discarded. Such stone may have passed through travel or exchange. A fist-sized piece of good flint could become knives, scrapers, points, and several new chances. You pick up one flake from the ground, its edge is sharper than it appears. With it, someone can cut meat, shape wood, trim hide, or prepare fibers. Survival depends not merely on finding resources, but on transforming them. The people beside you are physically vulnerable compared with many creatures around them. They lack the claws of a cat, the speed of an antelope, and the heavy hide of a rhinoceros. A lone human body is not especially well equipped for the ancient night. Yet humans have fire, planning, language, tools, and one another. An elder gestures toward the darkening horizon and speaks. You cannot understand the words, but everyone listens. Perhaps the speaker describes weather, perhaps a herd was seen beyond the ridge, perhaps tracks near the stream suggest predators nearby. Information passes through the group, turning one person's observation into shared preparation. This is how human beings become formidable without becoming invulnerable. The camp is placed carefully. It sits near water, but not directly beside the bank where animals gather. Trees offer shade, but the shelters avoid dead branches. The fire provides warmth and protection, yet it consumes fuel and reveals the camp's location. Every advantage carries a cost. You might imagine prehistoric life as a continuous emergency, but much of it is quieter. People rest, they talk, children imitate adults. Someone laughs when a basket tips over, another person hums while working. Daily survival still includes affection, teasing, irritation, and patience. Still, beneath these ordinary moments lies a condition modern life often conceals. There is no distant system ready to replace what is lost. No warehouse waits beyond the hill, no ambulance follows the river, no weather forecast glows from a screen. The group's security is made fresh each day from knowledge, labour, cooperation, and luck. As darkness deepens, people move closer to the fire. A child is pulled beneath a hide. Tools are placed within reach. The flames shrink, then brighten when a log settles inward, beyond the circle of light. The landscape continues without concern for human plans, and as you sit among these people, you begin to understand that the most dangerous part of life before civilization may not be any single beast, storm, or illness. It may be fragility itself. The narrow margin between enough and not enough. The dependence on a few hands, a few memories, a few glowing coals. For now. The camp is warm. Food has been found. Water is nearby. The group is together. But the world beyond the fire is already changing. And tomorrow, you will have to walk into it. Morning arrives without ceremony. The fire has fallen into red coals, and pale mist lies close to the ground beyond the shelters. You wake to someone stirring ash with a stick. A few sparks rise, then vanish. The air is cool enough to tighten your skin, and wet grass brushes your ankles as you step beyond the sleeping place. The camp looks different in daylight. What felt protected during the night now seems exposed. The trees are thinner than you remembered. The slope below leads toward a river glinting between reeds, while farther away the land opens into grassland. Nothing here is fixed for long. The river changes course after heavy rain. Trees fall, herds move, fruit ripens, disappears, and returns months later. A dry path can become mud by afternoon. A familiar waterhole can shrink into cracked earth before the next season arrives. You begin walking with the group, following a route known by memory rather than signs. The ground is uneven and every step asks for attention. Stones shift underfoot. Thorny branches catch at your legs. Insects rise from the grass. The sun climbs slowly, warming your shoulders and drawing the smell of damp soil into the air. Before farming and permanent settlement, human groups survived by adjusting themselves to landscapes that offered food unevenly. They did not simply wander without purpose. Movement was planned around water, plants, animal migrations, shelter, and useful materials. One established fact about hunter-gatherer life is that seasonal mobility allowed people to reach resources when and where they became available. That sounds practical, and it was. It was also exhausting. You cannot store an entire landscape in a hut. You must carry what matters: tools, hides, dried food, children, embers, water, and knowledge all travel with you. Every object adds weight. The group moves only as quickly as its slowest member, which is not a thrilling slogan for efficiency, but it is an excellent rule for survival. The path leads upward through scrub. From the ridge, you can see several kinds of country at once. Behind you lies woodland, shadowed and damp. Ahead stretches open plain. To the east, low hills hold pockets of stone and shelter. Each environment offers something useful and hides something dangerous. Woodland provides shade, fruit, fuel, and cover. It also reduces visibility. Open grassland makes animals easier to spot. It also makes you easier to spot. Rivers bring water, fish, plants, and game. They also bring slippery banks, insects, floods, and predators waiting for thirsty visitors. There is no perfect place, only compromise. You descend toward the river. The mud near the bank is crowded with prints. Hoof marks overlap one another. Bird tracks stitch delicate patterns across the soft ground. A rounded impression suggests a large animal passed recently. Someone crouches and touches the edge of it. The group pauses. A landscape is not scenery to these people, it is a message. Broken grass may show where animals moved. Fresh dung suggests time and direction. The smell of damp fur can linger in shade. A silence among birds may warn that something larger is nearby. Survival depends on reading small signs before they become large problems. A curious detail from prehistoric archaeology is that some ancient footprints preserve entire moments of movement at several sites. Researchers have found tracks showing adults and children crossing wet ground together. Such prints do not tell a complete story, but they briefly return pace, direction, and companionship to people who lived thousands of generations ago. You look down at your own feet pressing into the mud. For a little while, the ground remembers you too. The group moves on before the sun grows harsh. The landscape appears generous now. Water runs between reeds. Fish flicker near the shallows. Edible leaves grow beneath the bank. Yet the people beside you do not relax completely, because abundance can be temporary. Farther downstream, the river narrows between rocks. During the rainy season, water may rise quickly here. Floods can sweep away tools, food, shelters, and people. There are no levees, weather alerts, or cheerful presenters standing before coloured maps. The sky itself must be watched. Clouds gather beyond the hills by midday. They are not yet dark, but the wind changes. Leaves turn their pale undersides. The older members notice first. The pace shifts. Bundles are tightened. A child is lifted onto someone's back. Scholars remain divided over exactly how prehistoric people interpreted weather patterns and how far they planned ahead during periods of rapid environmental change. Archaeological evidence can show movement, changing diets, and shifting settlement patterns, but it cannot reveal every decision behind them. What is certain is that human beings repeatedly survived climatic fluctuations by adapting their behavior. Adaptation sounds elegant in a textbook. On the ground, it means uncertainty. It means leaving a valley that once fed your grandparents. It means testing unfamiliar plants. It means crossing a river because the old route has vanished. It means trusting someone's memory of a spring last seen several seasons ago. The first drops of rain strike the dust. They leave dark circles that multiply quickly. Soon the dry scent of the path changes into the rich smell of wet earth. The group reaches a shallow rock overhang and gathers beneath it while rain sweeps across the grassland. Water drums on leaves and runs in silver threads down the stone. The temperature falls. Hides are pulled closer around shoulders. Someone checks the bundle containing tinder, making certain it remains dry. A fire can be remade, but dry material after a storm may be difficult to find. You sit near the edge of the shelter and watch the plain disappear behind grey rain. A few hours ago, the land seemed open and readable. Now distance is hidden, tracks dissolve, the river rises, familiar landmarks blur into shadow. This is another form of danger, quieter than teeth or disease. The environment can change faster than human plans. A storm can separate people. A flood can erase a crossing. A drought can empty a region. Cold can arrive before expected. Heat can linger too long. The people around you survive not by defeating the landscape, but by noticing it, remembering it, and yielding when necessary. They carry mental maps made from stories, scents, stars, ridges, animal paths, and the shape of water. These maps are never permanent because the country itself is alive. As the rain softens, the hills reappear, mist lifts from the grass. The group waits. No one rushes. A wrong step on whetstone can become a serious injury, and the day still holds distance. You understand now that the world does not need to attack you to be dangerous. It only needs to remain indifferent. The river will flood whether you are ready or not. The season will turn without asking if your stores are full. The path will disappear beneath grass. The mountain will keep its cold. And so you rise with the others, tighten the hide around your shoulders, and step back into the wet country, where every ridge offers a direction, and every direction carries a risk. The rain has passed, but the land remains heavy. Water clings to every leaf. Mud grips your feet. The air smells green and cold, and the path shines beneath a weak afternoon sun. The group moves slowly because the ground is slippery and the day's food has not yet been found. Hunger is already present. It does not announce itself with drama. It begins as a faint emptiness, a small tightening beneath the ribs. At first, you ignore it. You have walked while hungry before. Everyone here has. But as the hours pass, the feeling becomes more insistent, and each decision begins to bend around it. A cluster of berries is examined and rejected. The fruit is not ripe enough. A patch of roots is found. But the soil is too wet to dig quickly. Someone discovers old nutshells beneath a tree, signs that animals reach the food first. You keep walking. Modern images of prehistoric survival often focus on the hunt. A group surrounds a large animal. Spears fly. Meat is carried triumphantly back to camp. It is a memorable scene, which is probably why it appears so often in books, museums, and documentaries. A successful hunt makes excellent storytelling. Failure is quieter. Tracks vanish on hard ground. Wind carries human scent in the wrong direction. Animals move beyond reach. A spear misses. A wounded animal escapes. Hours of effort produce nothing but tired legs and a few irritated glances. One mainstream fact about hunter-gatherer diets is that they were usually varied, depending on region and season. People ate meat, fish, shellfish, insects, fruit, seeds, nuts, leaves, tubers, and other plant foods. Hunting mattered, but gathering often supplied a dependable share of daily calories. Dependable, however, does not mean guaranteed. You reach a place where the group expected to find edible tubers. Several people kneel and begin digging with pointed sticks. The soil is opened carefully. Roots appear, thin and disappointing. Some are edible, but the patch has already been harvested earlier in the season. The group collects them anyway. Nothing useful is ignored. A child picks seeds from dry grass heads and drops them into a woven container. Another person checks beneath stones for insects. Near the river, someone turns over bark and finds pale grubs hidden in damp wood. To modern eyes, this is hardly a feast. To an empty stomach, cuisine becomes wonderfully flexible. A lesser-known archaeological detail is that traces of starch have been found on some ancient stone tools. These microscopic remains suggest that prehistoric people processed plant foods far more often than older popular images once admitted. Grinding, pounding, and preparing roots or seeds may have been ordinary parts of survival, even if those activities left fewer dramatic bones behind. You sit beside a flat stone while someone crushes the small roots gathered earlier. They are fibrous and bitter. They must be heated before eating. A fire is made beneath the shelter of a leaning rock, and the roots are placed near the coals. The smell is earthy rather than inviting. No one complains. Hunger changes the atmosphere of a group. Conversation becomes shorter. Children grow restless. Adults watch one another's portions without appearing to watch. The strongest may eat less so that the very young can eat more. An older person may claim not to be hungry, a sentence that has probably been used by caring adults for longer than history can record. Food sharing is not simply kindness here, it is insurance. Today, one hunter fails and another succeeds. Tomorrow, the positions may reverse. A family that shares when fortunate is more likely to receive help when luck turns. Cooperation spreads the risk of hunger across the band. Researchers continue to debate how consistently food was shared in prehistoric societies, and whether large game was distributed according to need, kinship, status, contribution, or some shifting mixture of all four. Archaeology can reveal cut marks and food remains, but motives do not fossilize easily. Observations of recent hunter-gatherer communities offer clues, yet no living society can serve as a perfect copy of the distant past. The roots are ready. You receive a small portion, hot and soft in the center, but not nearly enough. You chew slowly. That's another quiet technique. Eating takes time. The body is allowed to notice what little it has received. Nearby, someone cracks a bone saved from an earlier meal and scrapes out the last traces of marrow. Fat is precious because it carries dense energy. Lean meat alone may not be enough during hard seasons, and a body without sufficient fat can weaken even when protein is available. The group decides to search the riverbank before dark. You follow through reeds where water insects hum. A simple basket is placed in a narrow channel. Stones are arranged to guide small fish toward it. This method requires patience rather than speed. While waiting, people gather shellfish from the shallows and search for eggs among the reeds. The catch is modest. Several small fish flash inside the basket. They are divided, cleaned, and placed over the fire. Their skin blisters. The smell finally feels like food, and everyone sits a little straighter, yet the meal remains thin. You begin to understand that starvation is rarely one empty evening. It is a sequence. One poor day follows another. Stored fat disappears from the body. Strength declines. Walking becomes harder, which makes finding food more difficult. Judgment weakens. Illness becomes more dangerous. A small shortage can grow into a trap. Seasonal hunger may arrive even in familiar country. Fruit trees do not produce all year. Herds migrate. Fish runs end. Drought changes plant growth. Cold limits gathering. A place that seems generous in 1 month can become nearly empty in another. Today, many people can open a cupboard, visit a shop, or order a meal with a few taps. Here, food cannot be separated from weather, labor, memory, and chance. Every calorie has a history before it reaches your hand. Night approaches as the final fish bones are picked clean. The fire is kept low to save wood. People lean close together, tired from walking and still not full. No one knows whether tomorrow will bring a large animal, a patch of ripe fruit, or another handful of bitter roots. But the group does know where to look next. An elder describes a grove beyond the hills. Someone remembers water there. Another person recalls seeing animal tracks near it during the last warm season. The plan moves from voice to voice until everyone understands. Hope, in this world, is practical. It is a remembered tree, a bend in the river, a trail leading toward fresh prints. You lie down with hunger still resting inside you, not sharp enough to keep you awake, but present enough to shape your dreams. Beyond the fire, the wetland is quiet. Tomorrow, you will search again, because the most dangerous meal is often not the one you missed tonight, but the one you may fail to find after your strength has already begun to fade. Morning comes dry. The rain that softened the ground yesterday has already begun to vanish beneath the sun. Leaves still hold a little moisture in their folds, but the open earth is losing its dark colour. Mud turns firm beneath your feet. The air warms quickly, and the thin meal from the night before leaves your body feeling light and hollow. The group rises early because water now matters more than food. Before permanent wells, canals, storage tanks, and pipes, human survival depended on knowing where water gathered naturally. Rivers, springs, rock pools, marshes, tree hollows, and temporary ponds could sustain a group. But many changed with the season. One widely accepted fact is that prehistoric movement was often shaped by reliable access to fresh water. A route with game and edible plants could still be useless if there was nowhere safe to drink. You leave the camp carrying hide containers and hollowed plant vessels. They hold only a little, and every drop adds weight. There are no metal canteens, no taps, and certainly no cold bottle waiting politely in a refrigerator. Water must be found, judged, carried, and protected. The path climbs away from yesterday's river toward higher ground, where an older spring is remembered. Why leave visible water for a place that might be dry, because the riverbank is exposed? Large animals drink there. Predators know it. Insects gather in the reeds. A spring emerging from stone may be smaller, cleaner, and easier to defend. The sun rises above the ridge. Heat settles across your shoulders. Conversation fades as everyone saves breath. Children are carried in turns. An older man walks with a stick, placing each foot carefully on the uneven path. Thirst begins gently, much like hunger. Your mouth feels dry. Your tongue presses against your teeth. You swallow, but there is little relief. At first, it is only discomfort. Later, it becomes fatigue. The body cools itself less effectively. Thoughts slow, muscles feel heavier. Even patience becomes difficult. The group stops beneath a broad tree. Someone points toward animal tracks moving in one direction. Birds circle low beyond the scrub. These are encouraging signs, though not proof. Water leaves clues. Green vegetation may reveal damp soil. Bees travel between flowers and water. Animal paths converge towards springs. Certain birds return to drinking places near dawn and evening. People in dry country learn to read these patterns precisely. A curious archaeological detail is that some prehistoric communities used ostrich eggshells as water containers. The shells could be pierced, filled, sealed, and carried across dry landscapes. Fragments with engraved patterns have been found at ancient sites in Africa. Something that once protected a bird's egg could later protect a family's drinking water, which is an efficient form of recycling long before anyone printed the word on a bin. You continue walking. The remembered spring lies in a narrow hollow between stone slopes when you reach it. The group becomes silent. Damp moss clings to the rock, but no stream runs across the ground. Someone kneels and presses a hand into the soil. It is cool. Digging sticks appear. People scrape away sand and loose earth, widening a shallow depression. At first, nothing happens. Then a dark sheen forms at the bottom. Water seeps upward slowly, clouded with soil. No one drinks immediately. The first muddy water is removed with bark, the hollow refills, and sediment settles. Waiting is difficult when your throat aches, but rushing can waste the source or make someone sick. This is where knowledge becomes more valuable than strength. An inexperienced traveller might trample the wet ground, stir the mud, or contaminate the pool. The people beside you approach carefully. They take small amounts. They do not wash directly in the drinking place. They keep children and animals away from its edge. Scholars remain uncertain about how often early humans treated water by heating, filtering, or allowing sediment to settle. Evidence for containers and controlled fire suggests that some forms of water management were possible in certain periods, but practices would have varied greatly. What no one disputes is that people had to judge water through smell, clarity, location, animal activity, and inherited experience. You receive a small portion in a hide cup. The water is warm and carries a faint taste of earth. You drink slowly, your mouth softens, the tightness in your head eases. Around you, people refill containers one by one, but the relief is incomplete. A spring this small cannot support many people for long. If the weather remains dry, it may disappear. If another group arrives, there may not be enough to share. If animals disturb it during the night, the water may become unusable. Scarcity can turn an ordinary place into a center of tension. The group rests while several people search for damp patches, edible plants, and signs of visitors. Human footprints appear near the stones, though they are not fresh. Someone touches one print and studies its edge. No alarm is raised, but the information is remembered. Water gathers lives together. Humans, birds, antelope, elephants, insects, and predators all follow the same necessity. That makes a spring both refuge and risk. The safest water is often the water known to everyone. By afternoon, clouds build in the distance, though they offer no rain yet. Heat trembles over the plain below. The group begins preparing to leave before the sun becomes stronger. Containers are sealed with plugs of grass and fibre. Each person carries what they can. A child receives only a few mouthfuls, then asks for more. The answer is gentle but firm. The next source is still uncertain. You might wonder how anyone could sleep peacefully while depending on such fragile places. The answer is that fear becomes routine when it must. People plan, remember, and trust one another. They also accept that certainty is rare. The route ahead follows a dry channel through the hills. During wet months, water runs here. Now the stones are pale and hot, still. Beneath bends in the channel, moisture may remain trapped below sand. At one bend, the group stops again. Digging begins. The first layer is powdery. Beneath it, the sand darkens. A deeper pit reveals another slow seep. This water is not generous, but it is enough. Enough for a mouthful, enough to continue. Enough to keep a small child from weakening before evening. As the shadows lengthen, you understand that thirst is more dangerous than its simplicity suggests. It does not need claws, poison, or noise. It only needs distance. A few dry days can narrow the world until every direction is measured by water. The group moves onward, carrying the spring inside small containers and inside memory. Behind you, the shallow pool fills again, drop by patient drop, waiting for birds, animals, strangers, or perhaps your own return in another season, by the time the group settles again. The sky has turned the colour of cooled ash. The day's heat remains trapped in the stones, but the air above the ground is already changing. A breeze moves through the grass in long, soft waves. The containers are set down carefully. A little water is shared. Dry branches are gathered before darkness closes over the hollow. Everyone understands that night changes the rules. In daylight, distance can be measured, tracks can be examined, movement at the edge of vision can be followed. After sunset, the landscape becomes a collection of sounds, smells, and guesses. The fire is built before the last light disappears. Someone arranges stones around a shallow pit. Another person brings dry grass and bark. A glowing coal carried from the earlier camp is placed beneath the tinder. Smoke rises first, pale and uncertain. Then a small flame catches. The group relaxes, but only slightly. Fire offers warmth, light, and protection. One established historical fact is that controlled fire transformed human life by allowing people to cook food, survive colder environments, extend activity after dark, and discourage some predators. Archaeologists still debate the earliest clear evidence for habitual fire use, but by later prehistoric periods it had become central to survival. You sit close enough to feel heat on your shins. Beyond the flames, the grass seems almost black. The nearest trees form a broken wall of shadow. From somewhere near the dry channel comes a low call, followed by another farther away. The people around you stop speaking. They listen. A predator does not need to enter the camp to change it. Its presence can shorten sleep, alter travel routes, and force people to spend fuel they might otherwise save. Large cats, hyenas, wolves, crocodiles, and other dangerous animals occupied many of the same landscapes as early humans. Some competed for meat, some scavenged from human kills, some treated humans as possible prey. Yet the relationship was not simple. Humans also stole meat from predators, drove animals from carcasses, and occupied caves once used by other species. The ancient landscape was less like a peaceful nature reserve and more like a neighborhood where every resident had strong opinions about ownership. A child begins to whisper. An adult draws the child closer beneath a hide, across the fire. Someone adds another branch. Sparks rise, bright for a moment, then vanish into the dark. The smell of smoke settles into everything. Hair, skin, hides, baskets, and tools all carry it. That scent may help conceal the smell of people, although it can also announce the camp from a distance. Fire protects, but it does not create a wall. It must be maintained and fed. A quirky detail from prehistoric sites is that animal bones found in caves sometimes reveal alternating occupation by humans and carnivores. A shelter might serve people during one season and hyenas during another. Layers of tools, gnawed bones, ash, and droppings can preserve a long argument over the same dry space. You look toward the rock overhang behind the camp and imagine another animal sleeping there months earlier. Still, the group has chosen the place carefully. The rear is protected by stone. The approach is open enough to watch. The fire sits between the sleepers and the grassland. Spears rest within reach. Several people remain awake while others lie down. Night watch may not be organized with formal shifts, but someone is always listening. A nursing mother wakes. An older man tends the coals. A hunter rises to check a sound. Sleep comes in fragments, shaped by children, cold, smoke, and movement beyond the light. Researchers continue to question how often large predators directly attacked prehistoric humans. Fossil injuries, tooth marks, and damaged remains offer evidence in some cases, but the full frequency can never be known. Some scholars emphasize predation as a major pressure on human behavior, while others argue that avoidance, group defense, and fire made attacks less common than popular imagination suggests. The debate feels distant when a shape moves near the edge of the glow. You see only a low outline. It stops. The fire cracks softly. Someone lifts a spear. Another person stands and throws a burning branch toward the darkness. The shape turns away. A pair of eyes reflects the fire briefly, then disappears. No one chases it. That would be foolish. The aim is not victory. The aim is to remain together and persuade the visitor that another meal would require less trouble. The group settles once more, though conversation does not return immediately. Your hearing sharpens. Grass rubs against grass. An insect clicks near your hand. A bird cries from the trees farther away. Something heavy moves through the reeds. Each sound demands interpretation. Is it wind? A grazing animal? A predator circling? Or merely the imagination doing unpaid night work? Fear is useful when it encourages caution, but exhausting when it never rests. The people beside you have learned which sounds matter. They know the coughing call of a cat, the laughter-like voices of hyenas, the alarm cries of birds, and the sudden silence that may mean something large has passed nearby. Children learn these distinctions early. One boy points toward a sound in the grass. An older woman quietly corrects him. It is only a small animal. Her voice remains calm. She's teaching him not merely to fear the dark, but to read it. This is another human defense. Knowledge reduces panic. The fire burns lower after midnight. Wood must be saved. Yet the flames cannot be allowed to die. Someone pushes the ends of two branches inward. Red light spreads through the coals. You think back to the hunger of the previous evening and the fragile springs of the day. Those dangers weaken the group from within. Predators wait for weakness. A tired person walks more slowly. A thirsty child may wander. An injured adult cannot climb quickly or hold a spear with full strength. Threats rarely remain separate. Hunger increases risk. Thirst reduces attention. Cold forces sleep close to uncertain shelter. Injury leaves someone behind. The darkness gathers all these vulnerabilities and makes them harder to see. Yet you are not alone. That may be the most important fact in the camp. One person hears what another misses. Several voices can drive away an animal. Spears become more convincing when held by many hands. Firewood can be collected while others watch the children. A solitary human would be poorly matched against the ancient night. A cooperating group is a different creature entirely. Near dawn, the calls fade, the air becomes colder, mist forms again along the channel. People sleep more deeply for a little while as the horizon begins to pale. You remain awake beside the final flames. The predator never entered the camp. No attack came. Nothing dramatic happened. And yet the entire night was shaped by what might have been waiting beyond the firelight in this world. Survival often looks exactly like that. A danger noticed early. A coal kept alive. A child pulled closer, a pair of eyes turning away into the grass. Dawn reveals how stiff everyone has become. The night watch ends slowly. People rise from the ground, stretch sore backs, rub cold hands, and inspect the camp in the pale light. The fire still glows beneath a layer of ash. Nearby, footprints circle the edge of the grass, but none cross into the sleeping place. The danger remained outside. Today, however, the greater risk may come from something far smaller. You leave the hollow after eating a few softened roots and scraps of dried meat. The route follows broken ground toward a ridge where good stone can be found. The group needs sharp flakes for cutting, scraping, and repairing spear points. Useful material is worth the climb. The slope is steep. Loose stones shift under your feet. Dry grass hides holes between rocks. Thorn branches reach across the path, and each person moves carefully, balancing tools, water, and small bundles. Then someone slips. It happens without warning and without drama. A young man places his weight on a flat stone. The stone tilts. His foot twists sharply, and he drops to one knee. Everyone stops. He tries to stand, but pain forces him down again. There is no blood. No bone appears broken. To a modern observer, it might look like a minor sprain, unpleasant but manageable in this world. A damaged ankle can alter the future of the entire group. Mobility is survival. A person who cannot walk cannot gather food, follow migrating animals, reach water, or escape danger quickly. Others must carry more. Travel slows. The group may have to remain in a poor location longer than planned. Archaeological evidence makes clear that prehistoric people survived serious injuries, including broken bones that healed over time. This tells you something important. They were cared for. Someone shared food with them. Someone helped them move, cleaned wounds, and protected them while their bodies repaired themselves. Compassion is not a luxury invented by cities. It is ancient. Two people support the injured man beneath his arms. He tests the foot again, grimaces, and shakes his head. A resting place is found beneath a tree. Someone removes his hide sandal and examines the swelling. There are no x-rays, elastic bandages, antiseptic sprays, or small paper instructions explaining that the medicine should be taken after food. There are hands, observation, experience, and whatever materials the landscape provides. A strip of hide is wrapped firmly around the ankle. A straight branch becomes a support. The injured man drinks a little water and sits quietly while the rest of the group discusses what to do. One often overlooked detail is that many prehistoric skeletons show evidence of long-term disability or healed trauma. Some individuals lived for years after injuries that would have made independent survival difficult. Their continued lives suggest sustained social support rather than brief assistance. The group divides. Several people remain with the injured man. Others continue toward the stone source, but the pace is slower now. Attention shifts constantly back toward the tree where he rests. You climb with the smaller party. Near the ridge, sharp fragments of stone lie scattered across the ground. Someone tests a nodule by striking it with a hammerstone. A clean flake breaks away, thin and bright at the edge. You reach to pick it up. The edge cuts your finger. The wound is narrow, but blood appears immediately. You stare at it with annoyance more than fear. It is the sort of injury modern people might rinse beneath a tap, cover with a small bandage, and forget before lunch. Here, forgetting it would be unwise. Dirt enters wounds easily. So do fragments of plant material, animal tissue, and bacteria. Without antibiotics or modern sanitation, infection can transform a small cut into fever, swelling, weakness, and death. The group treats the injury with the seriousness it deserves. The cut is washed with a little precious water. Pressure is applied. A clean piece of softened hide is wrapped around the finger. You are told through gesture to keep it away from soil and raw meat. Researchers cannot know every substance prehistoric people used for healing, but plant knowledge almost certainly included leaves, bark, resins, and other materials chosen for soothing, cleaning, or reducing discomfort. Some may genuinely have helped. Others may have offered little beyond reassurance. The line between medicine, ritual, and experience would not always have been clear. Still, even imperfect treatment can matter. Keeping a wound covered matters. Rest matters. Water matters. Care matters. The party gathers enough stone and begins descending. Every step feels more deliberate now. Your injured finger throbs. The young man below cannot place weight on his ankle. 2 tiny failures in the body have changed everyone's day. Back at the resting place, the swelling has increased. A temporary camp must be made. Branches are cut, hides are stretched. Firewood is gathered close by so that no one travels farther than necessary. Food becomes a greater concern because the group is now less mobile. Several people search the nearby ground for seeds, insects, and edible roots. This is how injury creates a chain of risk. A twisted ankle delays travel. Delay reduces access to food. Reduced food weakens the group. Weakness makes illness and predators more dangerous. Nothing exists alone. By afternoon, the heat grows heavy. Flies gather near every smell. Someone waves them away from the injured man's skin. Your finger is checked again. The bleeding has stopped, but the wrapping is replaced. Another person has a cracked tooth. You notice him chewing only on one side of his mouth. He avoids the toughest roots and presses his jaw when he thinks no one is watching. Dental problems were common in many prehistoric populations, though the exact pattern changed with diet. Grit in food wore down teeth. Hard materials caused fractures. Infection could form beneath the gums. A damaged tooth might persist for months. There is no appointment next Tuesday. There is only pain, patience, and adaptation. Some ancient skulls even show evidence of deliberate dental intervention, including teeth that appear to have been drilled thousands of years ago. Such discoveries are rare, but they reveal that people sometimes attempted surprisingly complex treatments using stone tools. The thought is impressive until you imagine being the patient. Evening gathers around the temporary shelter. The injured man lies close to the fire with his foot raised on folded hide. Someone gives him the softest portion of food. No one complains that he has not worked. His value is not measured only by what he can contribute today. Perhaps he's a skilled tracker. Perhaps he knows where water lies beyond the ridge. Perhaps he tells stories children remember. Or perhaps he's cared for simply because he belongs. The distinction matters. You sit nearby, holding your wrapped finger away from the dirt. The wound is small. It will probably heal. The ankle may recover too, but there are no guarantees. In a world without hospitals, injury is dangerous not only because of pain, it threatens movement, food, warmth, sleep, and the delicate balance of labor within the group. The fire settles lower. Around it, people quietly adjust tomorrow's plans. The journey will wait. The injured will not be left behind. The group remains beside the ridge for another day. Morning light reaches the temporary shelter in thin bands, touching folded hides, stone tools, and the injured man's swollen ankle. He can move his toes now. That is encouraging. Your finger has begun to close beneath its wrapping. The camp feels quieter than usual, but not yet troubled. Then someone coughs. It is an ordinary sound at first. A woman sitting near the fire turns her face away and coughs into her hand. A child beside her watches, then returns to sorting seeds. No one stops working. Smoke irritates the throat. Dust travels on the wind. Cold nights leave noses running. A single cough means very little. By midday, however, the woman has become tired. She moves slowly and sits down more often. Her skin feels warm when another person touches her forehead. She refuses food, though hunger has followed the group for days. Now everyone pays attention. Illness in a small prehistoric band is not a private matter. People sleep close together, share food, carry children, prepare hides, and drink from common sources. A sickness that reaches one body may soon move through many. The precise pattern of disease before agriculture differed from later settled societies. Large epidemics such as measles require populations big enough to keep transmission going, and small mobile bands could not support every infection indefinitely. Even so, prehistoric people suffered from respiratory illness, parasites, infected wounds, digestive disease, and sickness carried by animals, insects, food, or contaminated water. You sit near the sick woman as evening approaches. Her breathing has become faster. Sweat darkens the hair around her face. Though the air is cool, someone offers water in small amounts. Another adjusts the hide beneath her shoulders. The group speaks softly, as though volume itself might disturb the body's effort to recover. There's no way to identify the cause. Perhaps she drank from a poor water source. Perhaps an insect bite carried infection. Perhaps smoke weakened her lungs. Perhaps the illness began days earlier, before anyone noticed. Modern medicine depends heavily on names. A diagnosis shapes treatment. Here, symptoms are the only guide. Fever, coughing, weakness, pain, swelling, vomiting, confusion, and changes in breathing must be watched closely. The group knows patterns, even if it does not know microbes. A person who cannot keep water down is in danger. A fever that rises through the night is serious. A child who becomes unusually quiet must be watched. An adult who stops responding may not wake again. This practical knowledge has been built through observation, memory, and loss. An intriguing clue from ancient human remains is the presence of parasites preserved in fossilized waste, soil, and bodily tissue. Such evidence shows that prehistoric life included intestinal worms and other unwelcome passengers. They were not dramatic predators, but they quietly stole nutrition, caused weakness, and made hunger harder to survive. The woman coughs again. A second person now complains of an aching head. The group begins to rearrange the camp. The sick are moved slightly apart, though full isolation is impossible. The shelters are small, and caregiving requires closeness. Drinking vessels are separated where possible. Food is cooked more thoroughly. The water source is checked again. Whether prehistoric communities deliberately isolated sick people remains difficult to prove. Archaeologists can identify care, burial, and patterns of occupation, but daily responses to contagious illness rarely leave clear traces. Some researchers believe repeated experience would have encouraged forms of separation. Others caution that social and practical realities may have made such measures inconsistent. You can feel that tension now. Distance may reduce exposure. Distance also leaves the ill frightened and unattended. No one wishes to abandon the woman beyond the firelight, where cold and animals would become immediate dangers, so someone remains beside her. Then another person takes over. Care passes from one pair of hands to the next. Night settles, and sleep becomes shallow. The woman mutters as fever rises. A child begins coughing in another shelter. The sound is small but unmistakable. You notice how fear moves through the camp before sickness does. People become alert to every throat clearing and tired expression. A sneeze attracts glances. Someone who would usually complain about smoke says nothing, perhaps to avoid becoming the center of attention. The modern habit of searching symptoms online would be impossible here, though perhaps not entirely missed. There is no endless list suggesting that a mild headache means either dehydration or something astonishingly rare. There is only experience, uncertainty, and the patient work of watching before dawn. The woman drinks more water. That is a hopeful sign. The child's cough remains light. The second adult's headache eases after rest. Still, the group delays travel again. This delay carries a cost. Food near the shelter is becoming harder to find. Firewood must be gathered from farther away. The small spring may not last. Every day spent caring for the ill reduces the group's options. Once more, dangers begin to connect. Illness limits movement. Limited movement increases hunger. Poor nutrition weakens immunity. Weak bodies recover slowly. The camp becomes a fragile circle of dependence. By the second afternoon, the woman's fever breaks slightly, her skin cools. She asks for food through a weak gesture, and someone prepares soft roots mixed with a little fat. Relief spreads quietly. No one celebrates loudly. Recovery is not certain, and the others are still being watched. But people begin speaking more normally. A child laughs when a beetle crawls across a basket. Someone repairs a damaged spear shaft. Life resumes around sickness rather than waiting politely for it to end. That may be one of humanity's oldest habits. A less familiar aspect of prehistoric care appears in skeletal evidence from individuals who survived chronic infections or severe disease for extended periods. Their bodies show that illness did not always lead to immediate abandonment. Some people lived long enough for bones to heal, deform, or remodel, which implies sustained support over months or years. You begin to see that a sick person represents more than risk. They also carry knowledge, affection, and identity. The feverish woman may know which roots grow beyond the eastern ridge. She may remember a distant camp or recognize the call of a bird that signals water nearby. She may be a mother, sister, teacher, or friend. To protect her is to protect part of the group's memory. By evening, the child's cough has not worsened. The injured man manages to stand with support. Your finger remains clean. These are small victories. But prehistoric survival is often built from exactly such modest improvements. The fire glows beneath a clear sky. You sit close enough to hear the woman breathing. It is slower now. Still, the group understands what cannot be seen. Illness may already be moving from one body to another. Recovery may turn suddenly. A person who seems better in the morning may weaken by night. There are no guarantees, only care repeated hour after hour. Water lifted carefully to dry lips, a hide placed over cold shoulders, a hand resting on a fevered forehead. In a world without hospitals, survival from sickness depends on the body, the knowledge of the group, and the willingness of others to remain close when closeness itself may carry danger. By the following morning, the fevered woman can sit beside the fire. She still looks tired, and her cough remains, but she drinks without help. The injured man tests his ankle with a wooden support. Your finger has formed a dark, narrow line where the stone cut it. The group begins preparing to move again. Children watch every motion. One small girl gathers loose fibers and tries to twist them into cord. A boy copies an adult sharpening a stick. Though he is given a blunt tool and a branch too soft to cause much trouble, another child carries a basket containing almost nothing, walking with the solemn importance of someone trusted with the group's entire future. In a way, that is exactly what children represent. They are the future of the band, but they are also among its most vulnerable members. A human infant cannot walk, gather food, regulate body temperature efficiently, or escape danger. It depends completely on others, even after learning to walk. A child remains physically small, inexperienced, and wonderfully talented at approaching objects that sensible adults would avoid. Thorns, steep slopes, fire, deep water, poisonous plants, biting insects, and large animals all wait nearby. There are no protected playgrounds. The entire landscape is both classroom and hazard. Current scholarship generally accepts that prehistoric childhood involved extensive care from more than one adult. Mothers were central, but fathers, grandparents, older siblings, and other group members may also have helped carry, feed, protect, and teach young children. Anthropologists often describe this pattern as cooperative caregiving. You see it as the camp is taken apart. The sick woman's child is carried by another adult while she recovers. An older girl watches two younger children near the fire. A man ties a bundle to his back, then lifts a sleepy toddler onto his shoulders. Care moves through the group wherever it is needed. This cooperation matters because human childhood is unusually long. Children require years to learn the knowledge necessary for survival. They must recognize food, read tracks, use tools, understand social rules, remember routes, and control fear around real danger. A young antelope soon runs. A young human spends years asking questions. It is a slower strategy, but it allows enormous learning. The group follows the dry channel toward lower country. The pace is gentle because several people are still recovering. Children move in the middle, away from the exposed edges. Adults walk ahead and behind. You notice a woman pointing toward a plant with broad leaves. She touches it, then gestures for the children not to eat it. At another patch, she digs up a small root and passes it around. Each child smells it and watches how the outer skin is removed. This is education before books. Lessons are repeated through action. A child learns that one berry is sweet while another brings sickness. He learns which branches burn slowly and which make bitter smoke. She learns that fresh tracks have sharp edges, while old tracks soften beneath wind and dust. Mistakes are allowed when they are survivable. A boy throws a small spear at a dead stump and misses by an impressive distance. The adults laugh gently. He retrieves it and tries again. No one expects mastery. Practice begins long before the skill becomes necessary. One unexpected clue about ancient childhood comes from tiny fingerprints, preserved in clay and soft materials at later prehistoric sites. Children appear to have helped shape objects, decorate surfaces, and participate in daily work. Their presence is also suggested by miniature tools, small footprints, and objects that may have been toys, even in a dangerous world. Children played. You see this during a midday rest. 3 children arrange stones in a circle and pretend to cook leaves. One imitates an elder by speaking in a deep, serious voice. Another carries a stick like a spear and stalks an insect through the grass. Their game copies adult life because play is rehearsal. The adults rest nearby, but someone is always watching. A toddler wanders toward the edge of the dry channel before he reaches the steep bank. An older child takes his hand and leads him back. There is no alarm. This kind of rescue is ordinary. Many threats to children are quiet. A small body loses heat faster than an adult body. Diarrhea causes dehydration rapidly. A minor infection can become dangerous if food is scarce. Growing bodies suffer first. Evidence from prehistoric skeletons often shows periods of nutritional stress during childhood. Lines in teeth and changes in bone growth can record episodes of illness or hunger. Some children recovered, carrying those marks into adulthood. Others did not survive long enough for healing to begin. The surviving evidence leaves open many questions about how prehistoric people understood childhood. Did they divide life into named stages? At what age was a child expected to gather food, care for siblings, or join a hunt? Practices must have differed across cultures and environments. Childhood was probably neither uniformly harsh nor endlessly carefree. What you can observe here is a mixture of affection and expectation. Children are comforted when afraid, but they are also taught to contribute. A girl gathers dry twigs. A boy carries water in a small container. An older child helps prepare food. Their tasks are scaled to their strength, and through these tasks they learn that belonging means participation. The group reaches a shallow stream by late afternoon. The water is clear, and children immediately want to enter it. Adults inspect the banks first. They check for tracks, deep pools, unstable mud, and signs of reptiles. Only then are the children allowed near the shallows. Their laughter moves across the water. For a few minutes, danger feels distant. Small feet splash. Mud is shaped between fingers. A child discovers a frog and reacts as though no human being has ever seen such a creature before. The adults smile, but their attention never fully relaxes. One person watches upstream, another scans the reeds. The recovering woman sits beneath a tree with her child asleep against her chest. You begin to understand that protecting children consumes enormous energy. They must be carried when tired, fed when supplies are limited, and guarded when adults themselves are exhausted. Yet a group without children has no continuation. Their vulnerability creates obligation. Their curiosity creates knowledge. Their play preserves skills by turning imitation into habit. As evening approaches, the children gather near the new fire. An elder begins a story using gestures, animal calls, and repeated sounds. The younger ones lean forward. The older children already know parts and join in. Perhaps the story explains a dangerous place. Perhaps it remembers a successful hunt. Perhaps it tells why a certain animal behaves as it does. Entertainment and education become the same thing beside the flames. A child who remembers a story may later avoid a poisonous plant, locate water, or recognize a warning sign in the sky. The smallest voice repeats the final sound incorrectly, and everyone laughs. The night settles gently around them. You watch the children curl beneath hides, surrounded by adults, siblings, tools, smoke, and shared memory. Their survival has never depended on strength alone. It depends on many arms willing to carry them, many eyes willing to watch them, and many patient voices willing to explain the world again and again. The next morning begins beside the stream. Mist hangs low over the water, and the reeds shine with droplets. Children are still sleeping beneath hides when the first adults rise. Someone stirs the coals. Someone checks the bank for tracks. Someone lifts a water container and listens to the soft movement inside it. Near the edge of the shelter, a pregnant woman wakes slowly. She presses one hand against the ground and the other beneath the curve of her abdomen. Her movements are careful, not because she is weak, but because her balance has changed. The child she carries affects every step, every meal, and every decision about distance. Pregnancy in a mobile prehistoric world is not separate from ordinary life. There is still water to collect. Food must still be gathered. Shelters must still be built. Children must still be watched. A woman may continue walking, digging, preparing hides, tending fires, and carrying supplies well into pregnancy, adjusting the work as her body changes. You notice that others quietly adjust around her. A heavier bundle is taken from her back. She receives a slightly larger portion of food when the group prepares to leave. The route chosen is longer but less steep. No formal announcement is made. Care appears through practical decisions. Humans are unusual among primates because childbirth is especially demanding. The infant's head is large, while the mother's pelvis must also support efficient walking. Birth is often a complicated passage involving rotation through the birth canal. Anthropologists sometimes call this the obstetric dilemma, although the traditional explanation is now being revised. Some researchers emphasize pelvic anatomy, while others point to maternal metabolism, infant development, nutrition, and a combination of several pressures. There is no single explanation accepted without qualification. Whatever the precise evolutionary story, the danger is real. Pregnancy increases the need for calories, water, rest, and protection. It can also bring nausea, exhaustion, swelling, and reduced mobility. In a world where food is uncertain and travel may be necessary, even a healthy pregnancy narrows the margin for error. The group follows the stream for part of the morning. The pregnant woman walks near the center, an older woman stays beside her. Matching her pace from time to time, they stop. The older woman touches her lower back and gestures toward how she should shift her weight. This knowledge hasn't come from books. It has come from watching births, helping mothers, surviving complications, and remembering what eased pain or made danger worse. One easily overlooked fact is that assisted childbirth may be a very ancient human behavior. Unlike many animals, human mothers often benefit from help because of the infant's position during birth and the difficulty of seeing or reaching the child during delivery. The presence of attendants may have become part of human social life long before permanent villages existed. The thought changes how you see the group. The older woman is not simply a companion. She may be the person others trust when labour begins. She knows how long contractions may continue, how to support the mother's body, when to encourage movement, and when silence is more useful than advice. She may recognize signs that something is wrong, even when she has no way to correct every complication. By midday, the group reaches a shaded area where edible plants grow near damp soil. The pregnant woman sits while others dig. A child brings her a handful of berries. Proudly offering everyone, she eats 2 and returns the rest. Food sharing has particular importance during pregnancy. A mother needs enough energy not only for herself, but for fetal growth and later milk production in harsh seasons. Nutritional stress can affect both mother and child. Ancient skeletons and teeth sometimes preserve signs of anemia, interrupted growth, and repeated periods of hardship. These traces cannot tell you exactly what one pregnant woman experienced, but they reveal how often human bodies lived close to nutritional limits. The group gathers slowly. A few roots are found. Insects are collected from beneath bark. 2 people return with eggs from a nest, handling them as carefully as if they were polished stone. The pregnant woman receives part of 1 egg after it is cooked. No one calculates protein, iron, or vitamins. The group simply knows that certain foods restore strength and that the person carrying new life must not be allowed to weaken unnecessarily. Still, there are limits to what care can provide if the land is empty. Generosity cannot create food. If water dries, affection cannot replace it. If labour begins during travel, the group must stop wherever it is. You continue into the afternoon, and the woman pauses more frequently. Her breathing remains steady, but the others notice every change. Pregnancy makes time uncertain. The child may arrive near the expected season, or earlier, or later. There are no calendars marked with appointments and no prepared room waiting at the end. The group chooses a sheltered camp before dusk. The location has level ground, nearby water, and a rock wall that blocks the wind. It may become important soon. Hides are spread more carefully than usual. Soft grass is gathered and dried near the fire. Water is heated in a container using warmed stones. The older woman inspects several plants and places them aside. Some may be useful for soothing pain or cleaning. Some may have symbolic importance. Some may do both. The boundary between practical treatment and ritual is not always clear, and perhaps it does not need to be. Reassurance can steady breathing. Familiar songs can reduce fear. A trusted touch can help the body relax. Researchers continue to explore how childbirth shaped human cooperation and social bonds. Some argue that shared childcare and birth assistance were central to the success of our species. Others warn that prehistoric social patterns varied too widely to reconstruct with certainty. The available clues point in one direction, though mothers were rarely safer alone. Night comes softly. The pregnant woman lies near the fire while the older attendant sits beside her. A child places a small stone near her hand, perhaps as a gift, perhaps because children have always understood that important moments deserve objects. You listen to the stream moving in darkness. No labour begins tonight. The camp settles, but the group remains prepared. Water is close, hides are arranged, the fire is maintained, food is reserved in this world. Childbirth may bring new life, but it also exposes the limits of every human defense. There is no surgery, no blood transfusion, No sterile room, only knowledge, patience, courage, and people willing to remain nearby. You watch the mother breathe beneath the hides, surrounded by those who have already changed their plans for her. The child has not yet entered the world, and already the group is carrying part of its weight. The cold arrives before sunrise. It moves down from the higher ground and settles into the hollow, slipping beneath hides, through gaps in the shelter, and across the bare earth where the fire has burned low. You wake with your shoulders drawn inward and your hands tucked close to your chest. Around you, people are already stirring. Someone pushes a branch deeper into the coals. Another kneels beside the fire and blows carefully until a faint orange glow brightens beneath the ash. Smoke rises first, then a flame curls around the dry wood. The entire camp seems to breathe again. Cold is rarely dramatic at the beginning. It starts with discomfort. Fingers become stiff, toes lose feeling, muscles tighten, children curl closer to adults. The old and the ill rise more slowly, but cold changes more than comfort. It increases the body's need for food, it makes injuries ache, it weakens people who are already hungry, it turns wet clothing, damp hides, and poor shelter into serious risks. The group has moved gradually into a cooler season, and everyone knows what this means. Warmth must now be protected with the same care once given to water. Human expansion into colder regions depended on several linked abilities, including controlled fire, shelter construction, clothing, food planning, and cooperation. Archaeological evidence shows that prehistoric people occupied environments far beyond warm grasslands. They survived seasonal frost, snow, strong winds, and long periods when edible plants became scarce. That success can make cold adaptation seem simple from a distance. Standing here, it feels anything but simple. The hides around your shoulders are heavy with old smoke and animal scent. Their fur has been turned inward for warmth. The outer surface is scraped and stiff in places, but it blocks some of the wind. Clothing in deep prehistory rarely survives, so researchers must reconstruct it from indirect evidence. Stone tools used for hide preparation, bone awls, needles from later periods, and the environments people inhabited all suggest that tailored coverings became increasingly important. The exact moment when humans first wore regular clothing remains uncertain. Some scholars use the evolution of clothing lice to estimate when garments became common, while others warn that such biological clocks provide only broad ranges. The surviving clues agree on one practical truth in severe cold. Bare skin limits where human beings can live. The wind strengthens after dawn. It comes across the ridge in steady gusts, bending grass and carrying the smell of distant rain. The group decides not to travel. The pregnant woman needs rest. The injured man still relies on his support. The fevered woman remains weak. The camp must become more secure. People begin gathering branches, reeds, grass, and stones. The existing shelters are low, which is useful because a tall structure catches more wind. Openings are narrowed. Hides are stretched across gaps and weighted with rocks. You help carry bundles of dry grass. Your fingers ache as you tie them into place. The cord is rough. The air seems to steal warmth faster than the fire can replace it. Shelter is not merely a roof, it is insulation. A layer of grass beneath the body prevents heat from disappearing into cold earth. A windbreak reduces exposure. Several people sleeping close together create a warmer pocket of air. Even the placement of the entrance matters. A less familiar detail from prehistoric camps is the repeated use of hearths in carefully chosen locations. At some archaeological sites, fires appear to have been positioned where rock walls reflected heat or blocked prevailing wind. These arrangements suggest that people understood the behavior of warmth through long experience. They may not have measured heat scientifically, but they knew where it stayed. By midday, the camp looks denser. The shelters curve close to the ground. The fire has been moved slightly deeper beneath the rock wall. Fuel is stacked under cover. Fuel is becoming a problem. Wood that burns quickly gives bright heat, but disappears fast. Thick branches last longer but may be difficult to ignite. Damp wood smokes heavily. In open or treeless environments, people may use brush, roots, bone, or dried animal dung. Every fire consumes tomorrow's labour. Someone must search farther for branches. Someone must carry them back. Someone must remain awake to protect the coals. Losing the fire would mean more than a cold evening. Restarting it in wet or windy conditions could take time and dry tinder the group may not have. The idea of making fire at will is often treated as a single prehistoric breakthrough. In practice, keeping fire alive may have been just as important as creating it. Embers could be carried in bark, fungus, ash, or other slow-burning material from one camp to the next. You watch an older woman examine the coals. She selects several pieces and draws ash over them, reducing the air so they burn slowly. Her movements are calm and exact. She has likely done this through countless nights. The group eats early. The meal is warm but small. Roots are roasted until soft. A little dried meat is added to hot water, making a thin broth. Everyone cups their hands around the containers to absorb the heat. Warm food changes the mood. Children speak again. The injured man smiles at something said near the fire. Steam rises into the dim shelter and touches your face. Today, you might adjust a thermostat without leaving bed. Here, warmth has occupied much of the day. It has required fuel, shelter repair, food, planning, and several pairs of tired hands. The first rain arrives in the afternoon. It taps softly against the hides, then becomes steady. Water runs along the rock and gathers in shallow channels. People check the shelter edges for leaks. One begins directly above the sleeping place. A hide is shifted. Grass is packed into the gap. A container is placed beneath the drip until the repair holds. Wetness is dangerous because it drains heat from the body quickly. A person caught in cold rain may begin shivering, then become confused and slow. The group may not have a word equivalent to hypothermia, but they know its signs. They know that shivering must not be ignored. They know a silent child may be colder than a crying one. They know that wet hides must be dried before night. As darkness returns, everyone moves closer together. The shelters smell of smoke, damp fur, earth, and cooked roots. Outside, rain whispers across the grass. Inside, the fire glows against the stone wall, casting slow shadows over sleeping faces. The coals are watched constantly. Someone wakes whenever the flames sink. A branch is pushed inward, ashes shifted, a child is covered again. You lie near the entrance with cold air touching one side of your face and fire warming the other. There is no storm yet, no deep snow, and no violent freeze. Still, the danger is clear. Cold rarely acts alone. It strengthens hunger, worsens illness, limits movement, and punishes every weakness in shelter or planning. The group survives because hundreds of small decisions have gone right. The tinder stayed dry, the hides were repaired, the injured were brought inside. The fire was not allowed to die. Beyond the shelter, the temperature continues to fall. Inside, people sleep around a shrinking circle of warmth, trusting that someone will wake before the final cold turns dark. The rain ends during the night. By morning, the clouds have broken apart, leaving a pale sky and a cold brightness across the wet ground. Water still drips from the shelter edges, but the wind has weakened. Steam rises gently where sunlight touches dark stone. For a little while, the camp feels restored, the fire survived, The hides are drying, the injured man can place more weight on his foot. The woman who carried fever now eats without help. Even the pregnant woman looks rested beneath the morning light. But seasons do not remain politely arranged. Weeks pass as the group moves onward. Following streams, edible plants and signs of game, the cold retreats, damp soil hardens, green hills fade toward brown. Each morning arrives warmer than the one before, until the memory of shivering beneath wet hides begins to seem distant. Then the heat becomes difficult. You feel it before sunrise now. The ground releases yesterday's warmth through the soles of your feet. Insects gather around your face. The air beneath the shelters is still and close, heavy with smoke, skin, and dry grass. By midday, the land appears almost colourless. Leaves curl inward, small pools disappear. The stream that once held clear water becomes a line of shallow basins separated by mud and exposed stones. Fish crowd into the deepest pockets, while birds gather along the shrinking banks. Heat is not simply the opposite of cold. Cold demands fuel and insulation. Heat demands water, shade, timing, and restraint. It changes when people travel, where they rest, and how much effort the body can safely spend. The archaeological record shows that early humans repeatedly adapted to dry and highly seasonal environments. In many regions, survival depended on flexible movement between rivers, lakes, springs, uplands, and coastal zones. Groups that remembered several sources of food and water had more options when one area failed. Memory becomes especially important now. An elder describes a valley beyond the southern ridge where water sometimes remains beneath stone ledges. Another person remembers fruiting trees near a distant escarpment. No one knows whether either place will still be useful. The group cannot remain beside the shrinking stream. Too many animals are arriving. Hoofprints cover the mud. Birds cry constantly from the reeds. Large bodies approach at dusk, pushing through vegetation and disturbing the water. Predators will follow them. The last pools may become foul as animals drink, bathe, and leave waste behind. The group prepares to move before dawn. Water containers are filled from the clearest remaining basin. Some water is allowed to settle before being poured carefully into hide vessels. Food is divided into small portions. Tools are checked. Nothing unnecessary is carried. When the sky is barely grey, you begin walking. The route follows the shadowed side of the hills. Everyone moves quietly, saving breath. Children are carried more often than usual. The pregnant woman walks near the centre with two companions. The sun rises quickly. Its light spreads across the plain, turning every exposed rock bright. Shade becomes a resource as valuable as food. The group pauses beneath scattered trees. Even when the stops feel frustratingly frequent, to travel through heat, you must learn not to fight it. You move early. You rest when the sun is strongest. You begin again toward evening. Modern schedules often reward steady activity, but the land has no interest in office hours. Here, efficiency means accepting that noon belongs to the sun. By late morning, sweat runs down your back. Dust clings to damp skin. Your mouth dries faster than expected. Each sip must be small because the next source is uncertain. A curious clue from ancient African landscapes comes from stone tools and animal remains found near former lakes and river systems that no longer exist. Places now dry and exposed were once wetter, greener, and rich in wildlife. Human groups moved through environments that changed dramatically across generations. The valley ahead may once have been generous. Today, it is silent. The group reaches a shallow depression where water was expected. At the bottom lies only cracked mud. Animal prints surround it, layered and confused. Someone digs at the lowest point, hoping moisture remains beneath the surface. The first soil is dry, Deeper down, it becomes cool but not wet. Digging continues. A dark patch appears. Then a little water seeps through. The amount is painfully small. It is enough to wet the mouth. Not enough to refill every container. No one panics. Panic wastes breath and attention instead. The group rests in the shade of a rock face. Several people search along the depression for greener plants, insect activity, or damp sand. Others remain with the children and the recovering adults. The deeper scholarly question concerns how often climate pressure forced ancient populations to abandon familiar territories. Some researchers see severe drought as a major driver of migration, innovation, and contact between groups. Others argue that environmental change interacted with population size, social networks, and local knowledge in ways too complex for one simple explanation. On the ground, complexity feels like a dry mouth and an uncertain direction. The searchers return with encouraging signs. Birds have been seen flying toward the western hills. Their movement may indicate water. The group waits until the sun lowers before setting out again. Heat still rises from the stones, but a faint wind begins to move. Your legs feel heavy. The children are quiet now, conserving energy without being told. The western route leads into narrow country. Rock walls provide shade, but they also trap warm air. The smell changes. Dry dust gives way to something cooler, mineral and faintly green. Then you hear insects. A cluster of small birds lifts from behind a boulder. The group moves faster. Beyond the rocks lies a narrow pool fed by a slow trickle from the cliff. Water plants cling to its edge. Mud shows recent animal visits. But the center remains clear enough to use. Relief passes through the group as a long breath. Still, people approach carefully. The water is inspected, tracks are examined. One person watches the path while others drink. The pool is not safe simply because it exists. Dangerous animals may return after dark. Another human group may depend on it. The source may shrink within days, but tonight it is enough. People drink slowly to avoid sickness. Containers are filled. Faces are washed with damp hands. Children become lively again and must be reminded not to splash in the drinking area. The pregnant woman sits against the cool rock while someone pours water over her wrists. The fevered woman closes her eyes and breathes deeply as darkness gathers. The camp remains small and cautious. No large fire is built, fuel is scarce, and smoke might announce the group's presence. Food is eaten quietly. The pool reflects a few stars between the cliffs. You lie on warm stone, listening to water fall one drop at a time. Drought has narrowed the world. Plants have disappeared. Animals have moved. Old routes have become unreliable. Yet human beings continue by carrying many possibilities in memory. A hidden spring, a seasonal tree, the flight of birds, the shape of damp ground beneath dry sand. The most dangerous part of the heat is not the discomfort. It is how quickly abundance can vanish and how far weakness must travel to find what remains. For tonight, water gathers in the pool. For tonight, the group is still together, and above you, the stars shine through dry air, indifferent and clear. While the land waits to see who remembers the next path, the water pool holds through the night. At dawn, its surface is smooth except for insects touching down briefly and rising again. The cliffs still keep the air cool, and for a little while the group remains quiet, drinking, checking containers, and preparing to leave before animals return. Then someone notices the footprints. They are human. Several marks cross the mud near the western edge of the pool. Some are broad and deep, others are smaller. The edges remain sharp, which means they were made recently. Your group is not alone in this dry country. The discovery changes the morning at once. No one shouts. No one reaches immediately for a spear. Instead, People crouch near the tracks and study them carefully. The direction matters. The number matters. Whether the visitors stopped to drink or passed quickly matters. A broken reed lies near the bank. A stone flake rests beside it. Pale and freshly struck. Another group may be close. Before villages, borders, and written agreements, people still lived within social landscapes. Territories were known, routes were remembered, and certain water sources, hunting grounds, or stone deposits may have been associated with particular communities. Movement through these places required attention not only to animals and weather, but also to other humans. Strangers could offer food, information, tools, partners, and safety. They could also bring competition, disease, theft, or violence. The difficulty was knowing which possibility stood before you. The group begins packing faster. The pregnant woman is helped to her feet. Children are gathered toward the center. Spears remain visible but are not raised. The injured man tests his recovering ankle and keeps close to the rock wall. A decision must be made. Leave quietly and avoid contact. Wait and observe, or follow the tracks. The oldest members speak first. Their gestures are slow. One points toward the prince, then toward the sky, perhaps explaining that the strangers passed before dawn. Another traces a familiar route in the dust. Someone else recognizes the type of stone used in the discarded flake. It comes from the north. That detail may mean trade, travel, or kinship. Archaeological evidence shows that prehistoric people exchanged stone, shells, pigments, ornaments, and other materials across considerable distances. Such objects sometimes travelled far beyond their natural source. This movement suggests that human groups were connected through networks broader than any single camp. Those networks mattered during hardship. A distant group might know where rain had fallen. They might share access to water. They might offer food after a failed season. They might also refuse. The group chooses to move west, following the same direction as the tracks while keeping distance. You walk through narrow country where the cliffs gradually open into dry grassland. The morning grows warmer. Each rise reveals more of the horizon, but no people appear. Then smoke becomes visible. It rises in a thin grey line from beyond a low ridge. The group stops. Smoke means fire. Fire means people, unless lightning has been unusually organised. The children are told to remain silent. Several adults move ahead while the rest wait beneath scattered trees. You follow at a distance, stepping carefully through dry grass. From the ridge, you see another camp. It is smaller than yours. A few shelters stand near a shallow basin. Hides hang from poles. People move beside a low fire. You count perhaps 10 adults and several children. Though others may be hidden, they have already seen you. 2 figures stand at the edge of their camp, holding spears upright. No one approaches. The space between the groups feels wide, though it is only a few hundred steps. Wind moves across it, carrying smoke, dust, and the faint smell of cooked meat. This is a dangerous moment, but not because violence is certain. It is dangerous because intention is unclear. A raised hand might mean greeting. It might mean stop. A gift might show friendship. It might also reveal weakness. The people beside you understand that body language matters. Spears are lowered but kept in hand. One older man walks forward alone, stopping well before the midpoint. A woman from the other group does the same. They call out. The words are unfamiliar, yet parts sound almost recognizable. Perhaps these groups share distant ancestry or occasional contact. Perhaps gestures carry more meaning than speech. The man from your group places a stone tool on the ground and steps back. The woman studies it. Then she sets down a bundle of dried leaves. This is not trust yet. It is an opening. One lesser-known clue to prehistoric contact appears in personal ornaments. Shell beads, pierced teeth, ochre, and carved objects may have signaled identity, group membership, or social connection. A necklace was not merely decoration. It may have told strangers who you were and whom you knew before anyone spoke. You noticed that several people in the other camp wear similar beads. One of the older women in your group touches her own necklace and whispers. She recognizes the style. The tension softens. More people approach, though slowly. Children remain behind. Spears are carried at the side. The exchanged objects are examined. The leaves turn out to be useful for easing stomach pain. In return, the stone flake is sharp and well made. Soon another gift appears. A small amount of dried meat. Your group offers roots and information about the water pool between the cliffs. Sharing knowledge may be more valuable than sharing food. The other group has come from the north, where the land is even drier. They know of a larger river 2 days west. Your people know of edible plants near the southern ridge. Maps pass between gestures, water, animals, paths, and danger are drawn in dust. Experts have not reached a single conclusion about how often prehistoric encounters were peaceful. Some evidence points to cooperation, exchange, and intermarriage across broad regions. Other discoveries show injuries caused by weapons and episodes of lethal conflict. Human beings carried both capacities long before cities and states existed. What happens here depends on memory, need, reputation, and restraint. The camps remain separate through the afternoon. That distance is deliberate. Friendly contact does not erase caution. Water is collected in turns, food is prepared apart. Children watch one another from across the basin. Eventually, curiosity wins. A boy from the other group rolls a round stone toward one of your children. The child rolls it back. Soon several children are playing a simple game between the camps, while adults pretend not to watch too closely. Laughter crosses the space more easily than language. As evening approaches, both groups sit near their own fires. There is no feast and no sudden union. Trust grows in smaller measures. A shared root, a familiar ornament, a tool left on the ground, a child laughing instead of crying. You begin to understand that strangers are dangerous partly because humans need them. A group that avoids everyone may remain safe today, but isolated tomorrow. A group that trusts too quickly may lose food, territory, or life. Survival requires a balance between openness and caution. The night settles over both camps. 2 fires glow beneath the same dark sky, separated by grass, uncertainty, and the first thin thread of connection. Tomorrow, the groups may travel together for a time or they may part without conflict. Either outcome is valuable. In a world without civilization, peace is not guaranteed by law. It is created moment by moment through gestures, memory, and the difficult choice not to treat every unfamiliar face as an enemy. The 2 groups part shortly after sunrise. There is no formal farewell. A few gifts change hands. Several directions are traced once more in the dust. And then the strangers gather their children and turn toward the northwestern hills. Their figures grow smaller beneath the brightening sky until dry grass and distance absorb them. Your group follows the river route they described for much of the morning. You can still see their footprints. Then the trail divides across stony ground, and all signs of them disappear. The landscape feels emptier after contact. Yesterday, another fire glowed across the basin. Other voices moved through the evening. Children played between 2 cautious camps. Now there is only wind, the scrape of sandals, and the soft creaking of bundles. You begin to understand how quickly human presence can vanish. In a world of small, mobile populations, people may travel for days without meeting anyone outside their own band. Familiar faces become the entire social universe. Every voice has a known rhythm. Every child belongs to a network of watching eyes. Every adult holds some portion of the group's knowledge. To be separated from that network is one of the most serious dangers imaginable. The group moves through broken hills, following a narrow animal trail. The recovering man walks more steadily now, though he still uses his branch for support. The pregnant woman keeps a measured pace. Children remain near the center, as they have been taught. The path descends toward a shallow valley filled with thorn trees. Here, people spread out slightly to search for edible pods and signs of water. You follow 2 gatherers toward the eastern slope. The others remain visible between the branches, their movements marked by flashes of hide and lifted baskets. At first, the separation feels harmless. You kneel beside a plant and examine its roots. One gatherer continues downhill. The other circles behind a cluster of rocks. You hear a bird calling repeatedly from somewhere above. Then you look up. No one is visible. You stand and call softly. There is no answer. The valley is not silent, but its sounds offer no direction. Insects pulse in the grass. Wind moves through dry leaves. A stone falls somewhere along the slope. You call again, louder this time. Still nothing. A modern person lost for a moment might reach for a phone, open a map, or follow a marked trail. Here, there is no signal to lose because there was never a signal to begin with. There are only landmarks, memory, sound, and the position of the sun. You climb onto a low rock. The thorn trees look nearly identical from above. The valley bends more sharply than you realized. The main group may be beyond the next rise, or moving farther away while assuming you're with someone else. This is how separation begins, not with a dramatic decision, with one person stopping, with another turning behind a rock, with a child following an interesting sound, with fog, darkness, tall grass, or rushing water breaking the line of sight. Ancient human survival depended heavily on group living, shared defense, food distribution, childcare, and collective knowledge gave people advantages that no isolated individual possessed. Alone, those advantages disappear with startling speed. You have a stone tool, a digging stick, and a small amount of water. You do not have enough food for long. You do not know every route through this valley. You cannot watch every direction while sleeping. The sun continues rising. You force yourself to remain still and think. Moving randomly could carry you farther away. The group may return to the last place where you were seen. You look for your own footprints, but dry grass has left little sign. Then you notice a bent stem. A patch of disturbed dust lies beneath it. One of the gatherers may have passed this way. You follow slowly, marking your route by placing small stones where the path divides. Whether prehistoric people used deliberate trail markers in precisely this manner cannot always be demonstrated, but humans have long relied on broken branches, stone arrangements, smoke, calls, and remembered landmarks to maintain direction. The deeper question is how often individuals became permanently lost. Such events leave little archaeological evidence. A skeleton found alone cannot explain whether its owner was separated, injured, deliberately travelling, or buried by others. The silence of the record leaves the emotional experience almost entirely to inference. Yet the practical danger is easy to understand. You reach the next rise and call again. This time, an answer comes faintly from the west. Relief moves through you so quickly that your knees seem weaker. You call once more. The answer is clearer. Someone has heard you. But the reunion does not happen immediately. Sound bends around stone and trees. You descend toward the voice, only to find a dry channel blocking the route. Its bank is steep, and loose soil slides beneath your feet. You stop. A hurried crossing could turn temporary separation into injury. So you walk along the channel until the bank becomes lower. The call comes again, now joined by another voice. The group has begun searching when you finally see them. Two adults are standing on a ridge. One raises both arms. You do the same. No one laughs when you return. There is relief, but also correction. An older woman gestures firmly. You should have stayed within sight. You should have called sooner. You should not follow uncertain tracks alone. The lesson is gentle because the outcome was good. A child watches closely. Perhaps this warning is intended for everyone. One rarely discussed feature of prehistoric life is the importance of vocal communication across landscapes. Calls, whistles, songs, and rhythmic sounds may have helped groups maintain contact in forests, hills, or darkness. The exact forms are lost, but the human voice itself was a survival tool. The group rests before continuing. You drink a little water and feel the familiar presence of people around you. Someone adjusts a child's carrying strap. Another person divides the gathered pods. The recovering man sits beside you and taps your shoulder with an amused expression. Only now does the fear begin to fade. The river is reached late in the afternoon. It is broader than expected, moving slowly between muddy banks. Reeds grow thick along the edges, and animal paths descend toward the water. The group chooses a campsite on slightly raised ground. As shelters are built, everyone remains close. Children are counted without anyone appearing to count them. Gatherers return in pairs. Those collecting firewood call to one another from the trees. The day's separation has sharpened attention. You sit beside the evening fire and consider what being alone would truly mean. No shared warmth. No one to watch while you sleep. No second opinion about a plant. No help crossing water. No voice answering from beyond the ridge. Solitude may sound peaceful in a modern room, especially after a long day of messages, traffic, and people asking unnecessary questions. Here, solitude is rarely freedom. It is exposure. Darkness settles over the river. The group forms a close circle around the fire. Familiar faces appear and disappear in the moving light. You listen to their breathing, their quiet conversation, and the occasional laughter of a child who has not yet learned how frightening silence can become. Beyond the glow, the country is immense. Inside it, your safety is measured by the distance between your voice and the nearest person willing to answer. The river camp remains quiet through the night. Mist gathers above the water before dawn, softening the reeds and blurring the opposite bank. The fire has been reduced to a red glow somewhere downstream. A bird calls twice, then waits as though expecting an answer, near the warmest part of the shelter. An elder begins to cough. The sound is dry and deep. It has been present for several days, but this morning it leaves him breathless. He sits with one hand pressed against his ribs while another person offers water. Everyone notices. He's not the oldest person in the group, but he carries more years than most. His hair has thinned. Old scars cross one forearm. 2 fingers on his left hand no longer straighten fully, perhaps from an injury suffered long ago. He also knows the country ahead. Yesterday, when the strangers described the Western River, he recognized the route. He knows where the banks become steep, where stone can be found, and where a shallow crossing sometimes appears late in the dry season. Without him, the river remains visible, but much of its meaning disappears before writing, maps, schools, and permanent archives. Essential knowledge lived inside human memory, routes, seasons, plant uses, animal behavior, tool-making techniques, kinship ties, and stories were passed from person to person through demonstration and speech. The system was powerful. It was also fragile. A skilled person could carry decades of experience. If that person died before teaching others, knowledge might vanish completely from the group. The elder drinks and rests. Travel is delayed again, though no one complains. The morning is used for gathering food near the river. Children search for shellfish in the shallows, while adults check fishing traps made from branches and stones. The elder watches from beneath a hide. A boy sits beside him holding a broken spear point. The elder gestures for the stone, turns it in his hand, and shows where the fracture began. Then he selects another piece from a small pile. His hands move slowly. He strikes the stone once. A flake breaks away. He adjusts the angle and strikes again. The boy watches with complete attention. This is not merely a lesson in making a sharp edge. The elder is teaching pressure, sound, material, and patience. He knows which stones split cleanly and which crumble. He recognizes flaws hidden beneath the surface. He understands that one careless blow can waste a piece carried for days. Stoneworking skills varied across prehistoric cultures, but archaeological sequences revealed techniques passed down over many generations. Certain tool forms remained recognizable across long periods, while others changed as people experimented, migrated, or encountered different groups. Such continuity required teaching. A child could imitate a finished tool, but imitation alone might not reveal the sequence needed to create it. The angle of the strike, the preparation of the platform, and the choice of stone all had to be learned. The elder hands the hammerstone to the boy. The first strike does nothing. The second crushes the edge. The elder does not take the tool away. He changes the boy's grip and points to a different place. On the third attempt, a small flake falls. The boy smiles. Knowledge has moved. Later, the elder asks to be taken closer to the river. Two adults support him as he walks. His breathing remains uneven, but his attention sharpens near the bank. He points toward a cluster of reeds. Beneath them grows a plant with thick roots. The outer layer is unpleasant, but the inner portion can be eaten after long cooking. Another nearby plant looks similar but causes sickness. The difference lies in the leaf stem and smell. A woman gathers both examples and places them side by side for the children. One easily missed truth about prehistoric survival is that identifying plants required far more than recognizing what looked edible. The same species could change with age or season. Some foods needed soaking, pounding, roasting, or repeated washing to remove harmful substances. Preparation knowledge expanded the usable landscape. A bitter root became food, a tough hide became shelter. A bone became a needle or point, a lump of stone became many cutting edges. Nature did not provide finished supplies. Human memory completed the work. The elder's condition worsens by afternoon. His skin becomes hot, and he no longer wishes to eat. The group moves him into shade. The woman who recently recovered from fever sits nearby, watching his breathing. Children are kept close, but not sent away entirely. They understand that something serious is happening. The elder speaks in short phrases. Several adults gather around him, listening. He points west, then draws lines in damp soil with one finger. The river bends. A ridge rises. Beyond it lies a spring beneath dark stone. He marks a second route, perhaps one used when the river floods. Someone repeats the gestures back to him. He corrects the position of the ridge. The map exists only for a few minutes before the soil dries, yet it is being copied into several minds. Researchers still disagree about the complexity of language among different early human populations and how far back fully developed storytelling can be traced. Speech leaves no fossil, anatomical clues, symbolic objects, pigments, ornaments, and increasingly complex tools suggest rich communication, but the details remain beyond recovery. What is easier to see is the necessity of communication. A warning must be precise. A route must be remembered. A technique must be demonstrated. A story must survive long enough to shape behavior. The group cannot afford vague instructions about a poisonous route. By evening, the elder sleeps. The fire is kept low because the air remains warm. People sit nearby, repeating parts of what he explained. One adult draws the river route again, another names the plants shown earlier. The boy studies the flake he produced under guidance. Repetition is preservation. Songs may help. Rhythm may help. Stories attach information to memorable characters and events. A dangerous crossing becomes the place where an ancestor nearly drowned. A healing plant becomes part of a tale about illness. A seasonal star appears in a story about animals returning. The exact stories are lost, but the method remains familiar, even now. People remember information more easily when it belongs to a narrative. A curious archaeological clue appears in repeated patterns carved into bone, stone, and ochre. Their meanings are uncertain. They may have represented counting, ownership, decoration, ritual, or ideas no modern observer can recover. What matters is that humans were creating marks that extended thought beyond an immediate action. They were beginning, in small ways, to give memory an external surface. But tonight, most knowledge still breathes, it coughs, it grows tired. It depends on others paying attention before the voice becomes silent. Near midnight, the elder wakes and asks for water. He drinks a little. His fever remains, but his eyes are clear. The boy brings him the newly made stone flake. The elder turns it between his fingers, then gives it back. Nothing more needs to be said. You lie near the river listening to the group repeat names, routes, and instructions in low voices. A predator can take one life. A drought can empty one valley. But the loss of a knowledgeable person can remove paths that no one else knows how to find. For this reason, memory is guarded like fire. It is shared before darkness. It is carried by children, and when one voice weakens, many others lean closer, hoping to keep its light alive. The elder's fever eases before dawn. He's still weak, but his breathing is steadied, and when water is offered, he drinks without assistance. Relief moves quietly through the camp. No one wishes to celebrate too early. Yet preparations for travel begin again. The river cannot support the group forever. Food near the bank has become scarce. Fishing traps return nearly empty. The dry season continues, and the stranger's directions point toward a larger watercourse beyond the western ridge. So the group leaves familiar ground. The decision feels simple when traced in dust. Follow the river, cross the ridge, find the spring beneath dark stone, continue toward the western water on foot. The route becomes something else. The river bends through reeds and mud before turning into narrow country. Cliffs rise on either side. The path is broken by fallen rock, thorn bushes, and steep channels carved by vanished rain. Every bundle must be carried. Every child must keep pace. Every recovering body must survive the distance. The elder walks with support, stopping often. The pregnant woman moves steadily but carefully. The injured man no longer needs to be carried. Though his ankle remains stiff, the group adjusts itself around them. Migration in prehistory was rarely one dramatic march into an empty continent. More often, movement happened gradually. People followed coastlines, rivers, herds, seasonal plants, and known routes. A group might shift its camp a few days' walk, then move again months later, across generations. Those smaller journeys carried humans into nearly every habitable region of the world. You do not feel as though you're expanding humanity's range. You feel tired. The sun rises behind the group, casting long shadows ahead. The riverbank becomes too steep to follow, so everyone climbs toward higher ground. From the ridge, the old camp is no longer visible. That matters more than expected. Behind you lies the spring where water was found, the valley where strangers exchanged gifts, and the riverbank where the elder taught the children. Ahead lies country remembered through words but not yet seen by most of the group. A route held in memory is not the same as a route beneath your feet. The western slope descends into open grassland. Animal trails cross in several directions. Some lead toward water, others lead toward grazing grounds, sleeping places, or nothing useful to humans. The elder points toward a distant line of hills. The group follows. By midday, clouds gather over the horizon, but no rain reaches the plain. Heat presses down. Dry grass scratches your legs. Small insects rise with every step. You stop beneath a tree with sparse leaves. Water is shared carefully. The remaining food consists of roasted roots, dried meat, and a few seeds. The portions are small because no one knows when the next reliable meal will appear. Migration magnifies every weakness. A poor decision near home may cost a few hours. A poor decision in unknown country may cost water, strength, and the path back. One interesting discovery from prehistoric archaeology is that stone tools made from distant materials often appear along natural travel corridors. River valleys, coastlines, mountain passes, and gaps between difficult landscapes became routes not only for people, but also for ideas and objects. A stone point may cross a region through exchange. A tool-making technique may move with a family. A story about water may travel farther than the person who first told it. The group continues in the late afternoon. Ahead, the grassland gives way to low hills of dark rock. The elder recognizes their shape and gestures with renewed confidence. Somewhere beyond them should lie the spring he described, but the ground becomes harder. The path climbs through a narrow pass where loose stones slide underfoot. Wind funnels between the walls, carrying dust into your eyes. Children are lifted over larger rocks. Bundles are passed from hand to hand. The pregnant woman pauses frequently now. No one urges her forward. Travel is slow because survival is not a race. At the top of the pass, you expect to see water. Instead, the land drops into a dry basin. The dark stone is there. The spring is not. People search along the cliff base. Moss clings to one shaded crack, but no water runs. The soil beneath it is damp, only a few fingers deep. The elder looks troubled. Perhaps the source has failed. Perhaps the season is drier than he remembers. Perhaps the group has reached the wrong outcrop. The evidence available to researchers suggests that climate shifts repeatedly altered human routes and settlements. Lakes expanded and vanished. Deserts grew and retreated. Grasslands replaced forests, then changed again. Some scholars argue that these environmental pulses opened windows for migration. Others emphasize that social connections and technological adaptability were just as important as climate for the people standing in this basin. The argument reduces to a practical question. Where do you go now? The group does not turn back immediately. Returning would require crossing the same dry plain with less water than before. Moving forward offers uncertainty, but also the possibility of the larger river described by the strangers. Several adults climb the surrounding slopes to look for signs. You remain below with the children, the elder, and the pregnant woman. Evening begins to cool the stone. Shadows lengthen across the basin. The sound of insects grows louder. Then a call comes from the northern slope. Birds have been seen beyond the next ridge. The searchers also found animal tracks, fresh enough that dust has not yet softened them. The prints lead west. This is not certainty. It is enough for a decision. The group camps without a large fire. Fuel is limited, and the remaining water must be saved. Everyone eats a little. The elder repeats the route toward the western river, though his memory no longer seems infallible. That may be the most unsettling part of moving into unknown country. Knowledge becomes less precise at the edge of experience. A valley known through repeated seasons can be read in detail, a distant route known only from memory. Rumor, or another group's gestures, contains gaps. You must move through those gaps anyway. The night is cool beneath the rocks. People sleep close together, but the camp feels exposed. Strange sounds move across the basin. A bird calls in a pattern no child recognizes. Somewhere above, stones shift under an unseen animal at dawn. The group climbs the northern ridge. The ascent is slow, and the sky brightens behind you. When you reach the top, the land opens suddenly. Far below, a green line cuts across the dry country. Trees cluster along it. Birds circle above it. Light flashes between the branches. Water. The river is still distant, but it is real. The children see the adults' expressions and begin smiling before they fully understand. The pregnant woman closes her eyes for a moment. The elder sits on a stone, breathing heavily. His remembered route partly wrong and still useful enough. The group begins descending. Unknown land remains dangerous. The river may flood. Other people may already live along its banks. Predators may gather there. Food may be plentiful only for a short season. Yet movement has created possibility. That is why human beings kept going. Not because they were fearless. Not because they knew what waited beyond every ridge. They moved because familiar places failed. Because distant knowledge offered hope. And because cooperation allowed fragile bodies to cross spaces no individual could safely cross alone. You follow the others downhill toward the green line. Behind you, the old river, the dry spring, and the temporary camps remain part of memory. Ahead, the western water grows brighter beneath the morning sun. The descent toward the river takes most of the morning, from the ridge. The green line had looked close enough to reach before the sun became strong. On the ground, distant stretches. The slope twists through loose stone, thorny scrub, and narrow ledges where every step must be placed carefully. You can see the trees below. You can hear birds rising from the river. Still, the water seems to retreat each time the path bends. The group continues in silence. Some people are tired from the previous day. The elder walks slowly. The pregnant woman pauses often. Children stumble, recover, and keep moving. Everyone knows that the river is real now, yet uncertainty has not disappeared. A new place carries new dangers. There may be strangers below. There may be crocodiles near the bank. The water may be difficult to reach. The trees may hide predators. A route can end successfully and still demand caution. You begin to notice how much of prehistoric survival takes place inside the mind. The body carries hunger, thirst, cold, pain, and exhaustion. The mind must interpret all of them while also watching the horizon, remembering the path, reading other people, and anticipating what may happen next. There is no true break from attention. Even rest contains listening. Even sleep contains readiness. The broader picture of human evolution suggests that our ancestors survived partly because they became exceptionally skilled at noticing patterns, predicting danger, and coordinating with others. A rustle in grass, a change in wind, or an unfamiliar footprint could matter. The ability to imagine what might be hidden beyond sight offered protection, but the same ability carries a cost. The mind that can imagine a predator can also imagine one when none is present. You reach the bottom of the slope shortly before midday. The river lies beyond a belt of trees, broad sand brown, moving steadily between high banks. The sight brings relief, but no one rushes forward. Several adults examine the mud first. Animal tracks are everywhere. Hoof marks overlap beside bird prints. A wide groove leads toward the water where something heavy dragged its body across the bank. The children are kept back. Two people approach the edge with spears ready. Others scan the reeds and trees. Only after the area appears quiet does the group begin to drink and fill containers. Even then. Someone watches. You kneel beside the water, but your attention remains divided. Part of you feels the cool liquid in your mouth. Another part listens to the reeds. Another watches the opposite bank. Another remembers the human footprints found near the earlier pool. The body drinks. The mind keeps guard. Long periods of vigilance are exhausting. Muscles remain tense. Sleep becomes shallow. Small sounds provoke sudden attention. Irritation grows more easily when people are tired, hungry, or frightened. Modern researchers use terms such as stress response to describe how the body prepares for danger. Heart rate rises, energy becomes available, attention narrows. These reactions are useful when a threat is immediate. They are less helpful when uncertainty continues for days. You have seen that uncertainty throughout the journey. Would the spring contain water? Would the injured ankle heal? Would the fever spread? Would strangers approach peacefully? Would the elder remember the route correctly? Each question was practical, but each also occupied the mind before an answer came. The group moves away from the exposed bank and chooses a campsite on higher ground beneath trees. The place offers shade and a clear view of the river. Though the grass behind it is dense, no location feels entirely safe. People begin building shelters, but the work is interrupted whenever a sound comes from the brush. A branch snaps, several heads turn, a bird bursts upward, hands move towards spears, nothing appears. Work resumes. A small but revealing discovery from ancient burials is the frequent presence of pigments, tools, ornaments, and carefully arranged bodies at some prehistoric sites. These practices suggest that people were not concerned only with the immediate physical needs. They remembered the dead, expressed identity, and responded emotionally to loss. Grief is another burden the mind must carry. The camp has likely lost people before, a child to illness, a hunter to injury, an elder during a hard season. Their absence does not disappear when the group moves to a new river. Memory travels without needing a basket. You notice the fevered woman looking at an empty place beside the fire. Perhaps someone once sat there. Perhaps the expression means nothing so specific. Still, every person in the band has probably learned that survival does not protect them from grief. It only allows grief to continue. The elder rests against a tree while the boy who learned stoneworking sits nearby. The boy attempts to shape another flake. His first strike is poor. He tries again. The elder corrects him with a gesture. This simple exchange reduces uncertainty. Knowledge gives the mind something firm to hold. A known route is less frightening than an unknown one. A familiar plant is less dangerous than an unidentified leaf. A practiced response to a predator is better than panic. Ritual story and routine may also help create order. Experts interpret prehistoric symbolic behavior in many ways. Some emphasize religion or spiritual belief. Others focus on social identity, group memory, or practical teaching. The surviving objects rarely reveal one complete explanation. What seems likely is that repeated actions gave structure to an unpredictable world, a song before travel, a story beside the fire, a pattern painted on the body, a burial performed in a familiar way. These acts cannot stop drought or illness, but they can steady people facing them. By afternoon, the new camp begins to feel more organized. Firewood has been stacked, water is stored, children know where they may play. A warning line of branches has been placed near the thickest grass. Not enough to stop an animal, but enough to make noise if disturbed. Small preparations calm the mind because they turn vague fear into action. You help prepare a shelter roof. The work is repetitive. Lay the reeds, tighten the fibre, test the edge. Repeat. For a while. Your thoughts narrow to your hands. This may be one reason practical work feels soothing even in a dangerous world. It offers a problem with clear boundaries. A cord is either secure or loose. A fire is either growing or fading. A container is either full or empty. The larger dangers are rarely so obedient. Toward evening, dark clouds gather beyond the river. Several people watch them carefully. The group has enough water now, but heavy rain could raise the river quickly. The camp stands above the bank, yet no one knows how high previous floods have reached. The elder studies debris caught in nearby branches. Dry reeds and leaves hang well above your head. The river has risen here before. The camp is moved farther upslope. Everyone is tired, and a few expressions harden at the extra work. Still, no one argues for long. The old flood marks are evidence. Ignoring them would be comfortable only until the water arrived. This is the emotional rhythm of survival, relief, then caution, rest, then preparation, hope, then another calculation. Night comes without rain. The clouds pass slowly, revealing stars between them. The river murmurs below. Insects hum near the trees. A distant animal calls from the opposite bank. People lie beneath the rebuilt shelters. The fire is safe. The water containers are full. No stranger has appeared. No predator has entered the camp. Yet sleep does not come immediately. Your mind repeats the day's path. It imagines the river rising. It hears danger in ordinary sounds. It remembers the moment you were separated in the valley and the silence that followed your call. Then someone nearby begins a quiet story. The voice is low and familiar. Children settle. Adults listen without appearing to listen. The story moves slowly, carrying everyone away from the unknown sounds beyond the fire. Your breathing becomes steadier. The mind that creates fear can also create comfort. It can remember danger, but it can remember survival too. The spring was found, the fever eased, the strangers exchanged gifts, the lost voice was answered, the ridge revealed water. You close your eyes while the story continues. In a world without civilization, the greatest pressure may not come from any one threat. It may come from the need to expect all of them, every day, without allowing fear to break the cooperation that keeps everyone alive. Morning comes gently beside the western river. The clouds have moved on, leaving the sky pale and clear. Moisture gathers on the grass above the bank, and the fire gives off only a thin thread of smoke. For the first time in many days, the group wakes with water nearby, shelter overhead, and no immediate need to begin walking. The relief is noticeable. Children rise slowly instead of being lifted onto tired shoulders. The recovering man stretches his ankle and manages several steps without support. The elder drinks warm broth while the boy beside him works patiently on another stone flake. The pregnant woman sits beneath a tree, sorting roots with two companions. No one person created this safety. The water was found because strangers shared information. The route was remembered by the elder. The injured were carried by stronger walkers. Children were watched by many adults. The fire survived because someone always woke to tend it. The camp exists because separate efforts have been joined together. This is humanity's strongest shield. People often imagine survival before civilization as a contest between a powerful individual and a hostile wilderness. The image is familiar. A lone hunter stands against wind, predators, and hunger, relying on personal strength and skill. It is also incomplete. A single person can make a tool, follow tracks, or gather roots, but no individual can watch every child, guard every direction, tend every wound, remember every path, and remain awake through every night. The deeper archaeological and anthropological picture points toward dependence on groups. Humans survived through shared labour, food distribution, teaching, caregiving, and cooperation across families and sometimes across wider social networks. You can see this clearly as the day begins. Several people leave to fish. Others gather plants along the upper bank. 2 adults remain near camp with the sick, the elderly, and the children. The tasks differ. but the food will return to one fire near the river. A narrow channel is blocked with stones and woven branches. Small fish are guided into a basket trap. One person stands in the shallows, disturbing the water, while another waits downstream. The work requires timing. If you see the person acts too early, the fish escape. If both move together, the basket flashes with silver. The first catch is small, but the method improves with each attempt. Someone adjusts the stone barrier, another changes the angle of the basket. By midday, several fish lie on wet leaves beneath the shade. No one claims them simply because one pair of hands lifted the trap. Food sharing reduces the danger of unpredictable success. A hunter may fail today and provide tomorrow. A skilled gatherer may become ill. A nursing mother may need more food than she can collect. An elder may contribute knowledge rather than calories. Sharing allows value to take more than one form. One revealing feature of many recent hunter-gatherer societies is the importance of demand sharing, gift exchange, and social expectations surrounding food. These communities are not direct replicas of prehistoric bands, but they help researchers consider how cooperation can reduce individual risk. The exact rules used by ancient groups cannot be reconstructed completely. Portions may have depended on age, relationship, contribution, need, or social position. Human generosity has probably never been perfectly simple. Still, the group beside you does not divide food by strength alone. The pregnant woman receives a rich portion. The recovering elder receives soft meat. Children are fed before the final scraps disappear. A successful fisher does not sit apart with the entire catch while everyone watches politely. Even prehistory had limits on awkward dinner behavior. After the meal, work continues. The boy shaping stone finally produces a useful edge. He hands it to the elder, who examines it, then passes it to a woman preparing reeds. The tool immediately becomes part of another task. She uses it to cut fibers. Those fibers become cord. The cord secures a carrying frame. The frame will help transport food or support a child during the next journey. Skill moves through the camp like water through connected channels. Nothing remains isolated for long. Children observe these exchanges. They learn that ability brings responsibility. A good tool maker contributes tools. A skilled tracker brings information. A person with strong arms carries more when another cannot. Social cooperation is not always peaceful or effortless. People become tired. Someone believes a food portion is unfair. A child takes a tool without permission. Two adults disagree over where the next camp should be placed. You hear raised voices near the shelter in the afternoon. The dispute concerns a bundle of dried roots. One person insists the food should be saved. Another wants part of it cooked for the recovering woman. The disagreement grows tense but not violent. An older woman intervenes. She divides the bundle, leaving most in storage and placing a smaller portion near the fire. Neither side receives everything. The group continues. Conflict management may be nearly as important as cooperation itself. People who depend closely on one another cannot avoid disagreement. They must limit it before anger damages relationships needed for survival. Researchers offer different interpretations of leadership in mobile prehistoric groups. Some suggest that authority was temporary and based on skill, age, or situation. Others argue that prestige and inequality may have appeared in certain communities earlier than once assumed. The evidence varies greatly by region and period. Here, leadership seems fluid. The elder guides root decisions. The experienced woman directs care for illness and pregnancy. A strong tracker takes authority while reading animal signs. No single voice controls every part of life. Influence belongs to knowledge, trust, and circumstance. By late afternoon, smoke appears upriver. The group notices immediately. It may come from the strangers encountered earlier, or from another band entirely. Several people climb the slope to watch. There is no immediate approach. Instead, a small signal fire is built in a visible place. Its smoke rises in short bursts as damp leaves are added and removed. After some time, distant smoke answers. The meaning is not fully clear to you, but the group relaxes. The signal appears familiar. Communication across distance extends safety beyond the camp. Another community may warn of danger, share news of animals, arrange a meeting, or confirm that a route is open. Social networks create a wider landscape of information. An unusual trace of these connections survives in shells found far inland and stone material discovered hundreds of kilometers from its source. Such objects may have moved through repeated exchanges rather than one extraordinary journey. A small ornament could pass from group to group, carrying social meaning across a world without roads. These relationships may also provide marriage partners, reducing isolation between small populations. They allow stories, techniques, and discoveries to spread. A better spear point does not have to be invented independently in every valley if people meet and learn from one another. As evening comes, several figures appear on the distant bank. They do not cross. Your group does not approach the water either. The two sides exchange calls. One figure lifts an object, perhaps a bundle or tool. An elder from your camp responds with a familiar gesture. Tomorrow, there may be contact. Tonight, both groups remain where they are. Caution and cooperation exist together. The fire is lit as darkness settles. Fish bones crack softly near the coals. Children repeat the day's signal calls until adults ask them to stop, which they do briefly before beginning again in whispers. The pregnant woman leans against a folded hide. The recovering man repairs a basket. The elder watches the boy-shaped stone without correcting every movement now. You look around the circle. None of these people is safe alone. Together, they are still vulnerable to drought, disease, cold, and loss. Cooperation does not make the world harmless. It changes the odds. One person can fall, several can lift them, one person can forget, others can remember, one fire can die. Many hands can shelter its embers. The river moves quietly below, carrying moonlight across its surface. Beyond the camp, predators still walk, weather still changes, and hunger will eventually return. Yet within the circle of smoke and familiar voices, human beings have created something stronger than claws or speed. They have created dependence without surrender. They survive because they need one another, and because, most of the time, they choose to answer that need. The figures on the opposite bank return at sunrise. There are 6 adults and 2 children. They stand among the reeds while mist lifts from the river, their bodies appearing and disappearing behind pale curtains of moisture. One person carries a long spear, another holds a woven bundle above the damp ground. Your group watches from higher ground. No one moves quickly. The caution is familiar now. It does not mean that contact will become violent. It means that every person understands how much can be lost through a mistake. After several calls, 2 elders approach the water from opposite sides. The river is too broad to cross safely at this point, so objects are placed on flat stones near each bank. Your group offers dried roots, a small stone flake, and a length of twisted fibre. The visitors leave shell ornaments, red pigment, and a bundle of fragrant leaves. The exchange is partly practical and partly social. The shells cannot be eaten. The pigment cannot stop a predator. Yet these objects carry value because people have agreed that they matter. They may signal friendship, memory, identity, or obligation. They say that one group recognizes another. This recognition is one of the foundations from which civilization will eventually grow, though no one here is trying to invent cities. The people beside the river are simply extending trust far enough to survive. You have travelled through a world without farms, walls, written laws, permanent houses, stored grain, physicians, police, maps, engines, or markets. Every protection that later societies will take for granted must be created temporarily through knowledge and cooperation. A shelter lasts until weather destroys it. A route lasts while someone remembers it. A promise lasts while relationships remain strong. Food security lasts until the next unsuccessful season. Nothing is guaranteed by an institution. Everything depends on people. By midday, the visiting group finds a shallow crossing farther upstream. They enter the camp slowly, accompanied by children who stare openly at everyone and everything. There is tension at first, hands remain near tools. Adults observe unfamiliar gestures. Children stay close to trusted relatives. Then food is prepared. The shells are passed from hand to hand. The red pigment is mixed with fat and rubbed onto a small piece of hide. One visitor examines the boy's stonework and demonstrates a different way to prepare the striking edge. Knowledge moves again. The visiting technique produces a thinner flake. Several toolmakers gather to watch. They do not understand every movement immediately, but repetition clarifies the sequence. A discovery made by one group can become an advantage for many. This ability to accumulate knowledge may be among the most important features of human history. Each generation does not begin with empty hands. Children inherit methods, warnings, stories, and social expectations. They receive solutions created before they were born, then sometimes alter them. A stone point becomes more efficient. A carrying sling becomes more comfortable. A dangerous route becomes edible through better processing. A route becomes safer because someone remembers where water failed. Progress before civilization is slow, uneven, and vulnerable to loss. But it is still progress. The visitors remain through the afternoon. One woman recognizes the fragrant leaves they brought. She crushes them and applies the mixture to an insect bite on a child's arm. Whether the plant has a medicinal effect or simply soothes the skin is impossible to know. The child stops scratching, which is useful either way. Another visitor speaks with the pregnant woman. Their words are unfamiliar to you in places, yet gestures bridge the gaps. She touches her own abdomen, points toward an older child, and demonstrates a breathing motion. Advice passes between them. The archaeological record rarely captures moments this ordinary. Stone survives, bone sometimes survives, shell, ochre, and charcoal may remain under favourable conditions. A reassuring conversation disappears completely. So does a warning whispered during labour, a joke exchanged while gathering roots, or the exact sound used to call a child away from danger. The most important parts of human life are often the least likely to fossilize. Yet they shaped survival every day. Toward evening, both groups sit around the same fire. There are now more voices, more children, and more eyes watching the surrounding darkness. The camp becomes temporarily safer because its social circle has widened. A story begins. You do not understand every word used by the visitors, but you recognize the structure. A traveller ignores a warning. An animal behaves like a person. The traveller suffers, learns, and returns wiser. Children laugh at the repeated parts. Adults laugh too, though they already know what is coming. The story entertains, but it also teaches. Warnings placed inside memorable events are easier to carry than isolated instructions. A child may forget a rule about crossing water. The child may remember the foolish traveller swept downstream after refusing to listen. No one can determine exactly when humans began telling complex stories. Speech leaves no direct trace, and symbolic artifacts do not preserve grammar or plot. Still, the combination of social learning, planning, ritual, and long-distance exchange strongly suggests minds capable of rich narrative far back in prehistory. Stories create a shared world inside the physical one. They explain who belongs, they preserve what happened, they suggest what should happen next. As the fire burns lower, you think about the dangers encountered during the journey. Hunger weakened the body, thirst narrowed every decision. Predators waited beyond light. Injury turned a single step into a crisis. Illness spread through invisible causes. Childbirth placed 2 lives at risk. Cold demanded fuel. Heat demanded water. Strangers created uncertainty. Separation threatened isolation. Migration carried everyone into unknown country. Grief remained after other dangers passed. Any one of these could kill, yet none fully explains the hardest part of being human before civilization. The greatest burden was having to face all of them without permanent protection. Danger was not an exceptional event interrupting normal life. It was woven into normal life. A calm morning could become a failed hunt. A small cut could become fatal. A known spring could vanish. A trusted elder could carry irreplaceable knowledge and still become sick overnight. You survived by remaining alert, but endless alertness exhausted you. You survived by depending on others, but dependence created vulnerability to conflict, loss, and betrayal. You survived by remembering, though memory could fail. You survived by moving, though movement exposed you to the unknown. The human solution was never perfect safety. It was resilience created together. The fire beside you proves this. Someone found fuel. Someone protected the embers. Someone taught the method. Someone shared space near the warmth. The same pattern appears everywhere. A spear is useful because several generations improved it. A route is useful because travelers shared it. A child survives because many people watch. An injured adult survives because others accept the burden of carrying them. Civilization will later expand these arrangements. Granaries will preserve food. Walls will alter defense. Records will preserve knowledge. Laws will formalize obligations. Roads will connect settlements. Those systems will reduce some dangers and create others. But their deepest foundations already exist here. Beside this prehistoric river, cooperation, memory, exchange, teaching, care, trust. The visiting group departs the next morning. They leave footprints along the wet bank and a new stoneworking method in several mines. Your group leaves them dried food, knowledge of the eastern route, and perhaps a story they will repeat elsewhere. The 2 communities separate, but the connection remains. You stand above the river as sunlight reaches the water. The world around you is still uncivilized in the modern sense. There are no towers on the horizon, no roads beneath your feet, and no written record that this meeting occurred. Yet the landscape is not empty. It is filled with remembered springs, shared stories, burial places, migration routes, food plants, warnings, and relationships. Human meaning already covers the land. You return to the camp, where children are learning, adults are working, and the elder is correcting the angle of another stone strike. The danger has not ended. It never fully will, but neither is the answer in a world without civilization. The hardest part of being human is living without certainty. The reason humanity endures is that uncertainty is never carried by one person alone. Sweet dreams,